Thank you for being here. I'd like to call the special meeting studying session. It's a joint meeting between the Town of Atherton City Council and the Town of Atherton's Audit and Finance Committee to order, and it's like 4:01 p.m. on May 7th, 2025. May I have the roll call, please?
Hey, Councilmember Hawkins. Councilmember Bulia.
Yep.
Councilmember Whitmer.
Yep.
Vice Mayor Holland.
Here.
Mayor Lewis.
Here.
The Finance Committee member Skolnick is not present. Committee member Till.
No, Teal
Oh, Hill. Committee member Hill, I see.
is
sir.
here, yes.
Committee member Sleeth not present, and Chair Walker.
Here.
And I understand it's not necessary for the Finance Committee to have a quorum, so they can participate and be present. So for public comment, now's the time for any member of the public to make a comment. They can either email it directly to our council@ci.atherton.ca.us. And just as a reminder that this is reserved for people wishing to address the council on any matter which is on the agenda, and the speaker's time is limited to 3 minutes. Do I have any members of the public? Yes, stand up and yes, thank you so much. Do we have wait, we need a microphone because it's recording, okay? Say again your name?
Otto Iverson, I'm president on. I understand that we're gonna have some tennis courts at the pickleball. So I just want to reason that I've been playing. I lived here 50. And just overall, obviously no one can argue with ball's popularity. But just, my understanding about play court, and instead of using my preference would, because it should be, don't have the noise, and in play court, privilege to have it. USTA has asked the players to have ranked tennis players here, like Aspen and so on. So I think it just makes more sense logically, financially, and our funds to build a pickleball between railroad courts. And also, not just for players, but also for older guys like me, it's better to play on clay because it's points. And USDA, we haven't won, for example, major tournament tennis last 2 years. That's why dominating. The idea is obviously clay court. So would love to you guys to consider that. A couple more things is, no one can argue again the popularity with pickleball, but tennis has been around for a couple hundred years. Squash, racquetball, everything come and go, right? So I'd like you to consider.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Any other members of the public like to speak at this time? Anyone online? Okay. Before I open up the main part of our meeting today, I do want to ask us to pause for a quick moment of silence. Sorry. No, I'm so sorry. I should have turned that off. Because this morning we had a tragic accident happen along Middlefield Road, and a bicyclist was struck and killed. It is a very, very sad day. He was not a resident of Atherton, but a resident of Menlo Park. If we could just take maybe 30 seconds and for a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So our meeting is to review the fiscal year 2025-26 special revenue, internal services funds, and capital improvement program for our budget. The report, and it's going to be made by our Finance Director, Robert Barone III, and Public Works Director, Robert Ovadia. You guys get to duke it out, which goes first.
All right, better. Thank you so much. Before you, again, we're going to go over the special revenue funds and internal service funds, and again, the capital improvement program for our fiscal year 25-26. We're going to do it in two phases. I will go over this portion first, and then me and Robert will again tackle the capital improvement fund. Again, the special revenue funds, we account for revenue that is derived from specific sources. We also have internal service funds. They come from internal service department charges from our operation budget. These are allocated to our departments for internal service funds. So our internal and special revenue funds include the library, tennis fund, COPS grant fund, equipment replacement, workers' comp, general liability, and our employee benefits funds. So those include our special revenue and internal service funds. You have my staff report, and I'm going to go over the highlighted points of the staff report. And we begin with the library fund. And as the council is aware, we are a part of the San Mateo County's library JPA. And as a JPA, we are permitted to retain excess funds generated from the local property taxes as long as they are spent on our library services here and they are met. These excess funds are currently held by the County of San Mateo County Libraries. The most recent use of our excess funds was our new library project that we just completed in 2021. And as well, the use of excess funds is for the uses of our hours, daily operations, utilities for the library. Any excess funds that are, we had excess funds advanced to us, again, like I said, for the capital project for the library. And any funds that were advanced are allowed to need to be paid back. So I want to mention that the beginning fund balance for the library is 2.7 million in 24-25, and also includes library funds that's held in trust by San Mateo County Libraries of 2.1 million. As I mentioned just a minute ago, the remaining balance at advancement of San Mateo County JPA for the construction of the library, remaining balance is 1.157 million. And the San Mateo County Libraries will deduct this remaining advancement from our library funds held in the trust. In the staff report, I mentioned that with this advancement finally paid off, funds will now be evenly split between the library and the town for library-related activities. Again, the county holds all future town excess funds. So the estimated 24-25, 26 revenue for the Atherton Library JPA is approximately 5.25 million. And San Mateo County Library's operations estimated at 3.37 million. And our town's 25-26 is projected at 1,032,000. Once this is all deducted for both our operations and the county's operations, the remaining excess funds projected for 25-26 will be 848,000. This will be evenly split between the town and the JPA. And so that estimates at 423,000. Again, these funds, even though they are ours, they will be held by the library in trust for the town. So as I mentioned, the 25-26 expenditures of 1,032,000 are for the operations, utilities, and maintenance costs for the town, for the library, and that consists of 392,000. Also within that 1 million operations expenditures is development of spaces of 200,000, which is for the use of town facilities for library programming, various town programming, and aesthetic needs around the library outdoor spaces. And the remaining amount there's 440,000 is for a building improvement capital outlay for the library. We're currently in the design phase for building a children's garden at the library, and that is anticipated to take place in the fiscal year 25-26.
Can I ask about a point of order?
Sure.
If we have questions about what Robert's talking about, do you want us to wait till he's finished his oral report, or should we ask what he's at portion of his?
I kind of portion by portion, yes, right.
I mean, I
That's what
didn't wanna
Yes,
Throw
That's
him
fine.
off,
but
what-
don't interrupt him until he's finished with the.
I thought
library
he
fund.
was finished with it. No?
No.
Did I? I'm sorry.
Had you gone on?
For the library fund, I'm just was finishing up for the library fund, letting you know that 400,000 of that is for the children's space for the construction for the library, and it's currently in a design phase right now.
Okay,
That's the library component.
so do you have a question about the library
I
fund?
do, I
Okay.
do. And it just seems amazing to me that so soon after built this beautiful new library, we're spending over $400,000 to, I don't get that.
Uh,
Why didn't we do it in the first place?
I think at that time when they did the design of the library, I don't think they quite understood the use of the library with children and people visiting. But also, I think a lot of it's with the San Mateo County Library's JPA. As they see the use of the building, they see that there's opportunities to.
Thank you so much, Robert. I think
Yeah.
that council member, could you, yeah, council member
not the
DeGoy
issue.
would like to make a comment
The
about it.
improvements are building a new children's garden that wasn't part of the original design. It's a totally new design for that little area behind the back of the library and the neighbor's fence
Okay,
that they're
where the big trees are?
where the big redwood trees are, yeah. There's space in there to put in a children's play area. And it's very, very well designed, totally separate from, it's not an improvement on what we built
Okay,
an
oh, it's
before.
the title that was
Exactly.
confusing.
So let me
Sorry.
just add to that. If you received your Athertonian publication today, which I did, and you should read it, there's a whole page dedicated to the library children's garden. And it's really well done. So do you get the
I haven't seen it. but it doesn't-
quarterly Athertonian?
I think I do.
Yeah.
yes.
It's really well done. So it explains.
Thank you.
The old library, the prior library, used to have a children's nature garden.
I didn't know
at the
that.
Back of it.
Mhm.
And so when the new library was built, they actually talked about that as part of the library's design. And the council and the Center Advisory Committee talked about that as a future development.
Yeah,
Thank you.
after we come. All right. Any other questions from council? Okay, Robert, continue. Next one.
Thank you. And the next fund I'm going forward with is the Equipment Replacement Fund. It's in the staff report. This fund is for the replacement of our large assets here at the town. For 25-26, the department allocations of revenue to this fund is $428,000. And the expenditures totals $375,000. The largest expense of that is $360,000, which includes $210,000 of purchase of 2 vehicles from the police department. This is a allocation each year as part of the department's regular maintenance and replacement schedule of their vehicles. Also, the department is seeking the replacement of 3 motorcycles for a total amount of $180,000 as part of this equipment replacement schedule. These are Patrol Fleet Traffic Division motorcycles, and these are grant funded, and the transactions will take place through this equipment replacement fund. In addition, the department will also expend $150,000 for the replacement and purchase of new firearms for all sworn officers. This was an allocation expense that was discussed in the general fund allocation budget, so it's allocated into equipment replacement fund. And also within the fund, the finance department, we anticipate to upgrade our financial software system to just upgrade and migrate to the next version of our current software, and that's about $45,000. So that $375,000 expenditures includes the PD component and our component.
Councilmember Whitmer.
I think The PD's not buying the two vehicles this next year.
This, not this next year, but the allocation is the yearly allocation that we allocate.
Okay,
Correct.
so I have a follow-on
Correct.
to that, if I may. I mean, so if we don't expend it, it does appear in the staff report that the allocation is that it's every 2 years that we allocate this $360,000 for the replacement of 2 vehicles.
It's 2 vehicles each year.
2 vehicles, oh, yes,
Yeah.
each year, sorry,
ma'am.
yes, 2 vehicles each year. And so that will just continue to accrue?
Yeah, that's the
Mhm.
allocation, goes from the department into the equipment replacement fund.
Mhm.
And at the point in time when the PD vehicles reach their stations, single fund.
But we don't keep adding to that.
You keep adding to it at the rate of 2 vehicles per year.
Uh-huh.
Which is 210,000. That's the equivalent of 210,000 for 2 vehicles a year. And then so if the allocation will be in there, and let's say next year, instead of purchasing 2 vehicles, we purchase 4.
Breaks down, or something else that is the funds to do that.
So how much is in the fund now? It says doesn't say how much is. in
There's
the fund.
currently it's about 700,000.
No, 700,
700?
yeah, in the fund now, and that would be
Those are the attachment 1.
attachment 1, which is. Okay, yeah, this one. It's just equipment replacement.
Yeah, the fund balance is about 1.2 million, but 700,000 is the cash basis portion of it. It's 1.2 million, but because it also,
99.
the fund balance, correct.
Exactly.
Robert, you show the 180,000 for the motorcycles as an expense, and it's a donation, as I understand it. So where's the offsetting revenue?
It has not been added into this equipment replacement fund yet. At the writing of this and the discussion of it, we hadn't received the grant funds yet, so it'll be updated. The revenue will show up in
It'll
this
show
fund,
up in the fund here.
correct?
Okay. Well, that's a little confusing. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
I just want to say, from where I'm sitting, feels a little confusing.
Well, it's basically the 180 will be a wash, right? You'll see the revenue, you see the expense, it's just in and out. But for the allocation of the 210,000, that will sit in there for the future.
And then next year, it'll go to another 210,000.
Correct.
But instead of 2 vehicles, they may end up with 3 based on mileage, or if there's an accident.
Right, and then,
Instead of tagging the general fund for that money.
It comes out of
pull
here.
it the equipment replacement fund.
okay. Any other questions, council, or
It's an internal-
finance?
it's what we
It-
call a
internal service.
fund. Basically, every operational budget
Hasn't,
is allocated an amount that it ships into the employee benefits fund, the equipment replacement fund, and other funds like that. Then use those funds to purchase equipment, to replace items that need to be replaced, instead of putting it into our operational budget as a out of our general fund each year.
So this, if I understand it correctly, this affects our internal accounting, but it would not affect our financial statements. Is that right? I understand.
There you go. Any other, Councilmember Whitmer? Yes. So,
Similar to a depreciation fund. Okay.
Correct, correct.
Yeah, or an amortization fund
right.
in the commercial world. Okay, thank you.
okay, Tom?
Why isn't the police department going to get essentially credited for the 180,000?
Oh, they do in this fund. It gets credited to their,
Why doesn't it?
the revenue
why doesn't it
charge component.
But they have to pay to the fund.
I don't think they're paying.
Yeah,
paying-
Ever? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
this 180 is paying for the motorcycles. The 210 is for future vehicles.
Thank you.
All right, let's proceed. Thank you.
Okay.
very much.
The next one in the staff report is the workers' compensation fund. This is our departmental charges, and this is for our workers' comp. The 25-26 charges to our department was 74,000. The fiscal year 25-26 expense is 256,000 in the fund. This includes our JPA assessment for workers' comp of 250,000, and the remaining 6,000 is our liability and safety component of our workers' compensation. In the staff report, it was communicated that the JPA is experiencing some challenges, the workers' compensation JPA. Some member agencies have been discussing to dissolve the JPA. This will result in the town and other member agencies having to look at alternatives. Currently, as we will be exploring some options with other workers' compensation funds. And the JPA has agreed to continue through the end of the calendar year or through the end of next fiscal year, 2026, June of 26. So this will give us time to explore other alternatives. We're currently exploring 2 alternatives, and currently there is enough reserves in the workers' compensation fund to weather any changes in the JPA estimate, moving over to JPA and other reserve requirements of entering a new JPA. So we have a balance of 1.2 million in there.
But if we were to move through the CPA,
They may
that
require
doesn't
us.
Take its tail claims with us, so any future liability, we've got to make sure we've got a reserve built up in that JPA fund. Pay for that, we would, these funds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Rick.
Do we have sufficient funds to provide that right now?
Yeah, we have 1.3 million in the fund, and it was communicated in the staff report, through town's due diligence over the years, we built up that fund because we've had issues with our compensation liabilities to weather the storm of having to replenish our equities every year. So that is going to benefit us in seeking other JPA entrances.
Any other council have a question? Any member of the public have a question? Robert, I just don't see where in the text of the workers' compensation fund staff report or the attachment 1 where the 1.2 million is indicated that we have in reserves. I'm looking at lots of other numbers, but
Oh, sorry.
the 1.2 does
apologize.
not seem to track.
Yeah, I didn't add it in there, but it's in the end of the attachments for the workers' compensation fund. It's listed at the in that account.
Oh, in this
Yes,
one?
ma'am. Yeah.
Right there? Okay.
Yes.
I was
It's
looking
Fund
at-
614.
Okay, well, not that I doubt you, it's just that.
No, no.
But I do.
No, thank you.
0.614.
It's right after the equipment replacement fund, 610.
Okay. Internal workman's compensation fund budget by account. Still don't see the 1.2 million.
I'm sorry, I said 1.2. I had it in my notes, but it's 1.3.
Okay,
1.3 million, 1.39.
okay. Well, oh my gosh.
Sorry.
That's like, actually, okay,
I need
we'll move on
glasses.
from the workers' compensation fund.
The next fund is the general liability fund. Again, this is our liability claims and property losses. Funds to this fund is 634,000, and our expenditure budget is 734,000. This includes our liability and property insurance of 634,000 expense, and an estimated 100,000 expense that's our self-retention amount for any claims that occur. Our self-retention is 25,000 per claim, and we budget 100,000. Not to say that we will have that many claims, but we usually around 2.5 is the claims that we have per year. So
Okay,
that's the general liability fund. And the last fund is the employee benefits fund. It tracks expenditures for our various departments for employment, retirement, and healthcare benefits. It represents our audit compliance set aside for compensated absences for vacation, sick leave, holiday, and other compensatory time. It also accounts for our pay-as-you-go retiree healthcare to this fund. Revenue to the fund is for 25-26 is 437,000 to expenditures of 443,000, which includes 83,000 of our PEMCA costs for CalPERS retiree health. And this is reimbursable from our PARS trust. And then it includes expense of employee benefit fund expense of 345,000 and 15,000 budget expense of unemployment expense in the fund.
This is also the fund, Robert, where you, where the
Yes,
finance committee
which is good.
noted
Correct.
there is a surplus in this fund, then use, the council could then consider using as a pension UAL payment part of the ADP. That's approximately how much?
819,000. Yeah, because we currently have a total compensated absences balance of 1,074,000, and our ending fund balance is 819,820. And again, as George mentioned, there's been discussion that the Employee Benefits Fund is maintaining a cash balance equivalent to this compensated absence balance. And staff recommends that we maintain the compensated absence portion of the 1 million in the fund cash balance, but we recommend that 820,000 could be allocated to this CalPERS
Thank you.
ADP.
Chair,
So I'm looking at page 19 of 20, which is the actual financial detail for employee benefits. And I'm trying to figure out why did employee benefits earned go from 338,000 fiscal 24 down to 250,000 last year and up, now they're going back up to 345,000. That makes no sense to me.
Well, the budget at the time was the employee benefits earned. There's charges that when employees take time off, it gets charged to the general fund. And so the charges that we charge to the general fund to each department gets allocated here. But at the end of the year, we move if employees do payouts for vacation, that amount gets allocated to the general fund. So that charge gets moved at the end of the year when we true up our compensated absences balances. That charge gets added here. It gets accrued here to make up that difference. So that's why last year's budget was 250,000 because in the previous year there was time taken off, and we anticipated it would be less than that. And this year, going up this year, we increased that amount to 345,000. In the future, in next year's budget, we'll have to probably increase the current allocation charge that's listed in the staff report is 3% for all departments by salary. That's how it's allocated. And then for police, it's 4% of salary that's allocated. So I think next year we'll have to adjust that allocation percentage.
any other questions for Robert on this topic? Seeing none, let's move on.
And then we have the tennis fund. It has 70,000. We're projecting 70,000 of revenue against expenditures of 61,000. And again, 3,000 of that 61,000, 3,000 is for contract maintenance, 2,500 is for security. We change the keys every January, February. So that's the expense that we have. And then there was about 46,000 expense for facility maintenance for the courts. That's just if there's any maintenance needs at the courts, that's what we budget. So there's a 70,000 revenue against 61,000 in expenditures for the 25-26 budget. And any additional funds will come from that fund balance of the tennis fund.
Any member of council?
Question.
Yes, Rick.
How much revenue did we get over the year for the clay court access of $30 an hour for non-residents?
Specifically.
Not-
To be specific, but
Of
yes.
the 18,000 in tennis keys, I wouldn't say not much. I know that the hourly, we'd have to look at it because the clay court per hour,
Do
It-
we actually track what it is?
the way that if you don't have, the way we do on the tennis keys is you get, with the tennis key, you get access to the clay court and the tennis court. But if you don't, if you just want the clay court, it's an hourly.
Wait, it says that if you're a resident and you buy a key, yes, you get access to both types of
Correct.
courts. If you're a non-resident, which addresses my question,
Mhm.
the key is $280, doesn't include access to the clay court. If you use the clay court, you pay an additional $30 an hour. So my question is, okay, that's fine. I'm sure we track how much revenue we get from residents and from non-residents, and how much of the non-resident revenue is the $30 per hour fee for the clay court.
Councilmember, let me interject. The town doesn't get revenue directly. We don't manage the reservations. And so though we do sell the keys and collect the revenue from the keys for both residents and non-residents, all the reservations are actually done through player capital. And we get tracking information on our usage.
But this isn't a question about reservations.
You're asking how many keys are
Well,
just
it's-
clay court,
it's-
right?
No.
No,
he's
it's just
asking
a question about
Hours.
revenue.
Yeah.
charge. And
How many hours?
those charges would be related to a reservation made through player capital. And so we'll double check with player
Well,
capital. as to
who,
that.
does Player Capital collect the $30 per hour?
Yes, yes,
Oh. And then they reimburse it to us, I
It should be.
assume.
yes.
And do we keep track of how much we receive from them?
We'll have
We
to
have
get
to,
back.
yeah, look at that.
Okay.
Very good question. Any other? Well, I don't want to put him on the spot, and, I think that this is an open forum here. If he wants to speak, he can. Do you have a comment to make, Councilmember Widmer? Thank you. Okay. Seeing no other comments from the council, any member of the public want to speak on this topic? Seeing none, we'll move on. COP Citizen Option for Public Safety.
Yeah, and this is a grant that is a public safety grant that we receive every year through the state of California. This is for public safety, and approximately we receive approximately 186,000. However, we're projecting to receive about 190,000 in the fiscal year 25-26. These funds are used for frontline law enforcement, and they're used for our sworn personnel.
Looks like we use it all.
Yeah.
It's always
Yes.
good. Our COPS grants comes in, they go out, there we go.
Yeah, there's
I know.
exactly. There used to be a time it used to only be 100,000.
Good. Any
Yeah.
member of the council want to make a comment on the COPS grants? Any member of the public? Seeing none,
And-
we will move on.
Yeah, that concludes my portion, and we'll move to the capital improvement fund.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council and the Audit and Finance Committee. I'm going to say that we're going to be running through the capital improvement program slightly different than we have in years past, where we've prepared an overall outline of expenditures. This will be a more interactive exercise where the council can direct priorities and timelines for, provide input on timelines for projects. So I'm going to kind of run through a few things with regards to the categorizations of projects, and then roll into what we're calling baseline projects and continuing projects before we talk about new projects. And so as I'm going to say, different than what we do with the operation side, on the capital side, we do program a single year and you adopt a single year budget, but we provide a 5-year look ahead. So the primary focus on what you're adopting for the capital program will be for the 25-26 fiscal year, but we'll be talking about look ahead through 29-30. Okay. And so we categorize most of our projects into 3 main buckets. related to streets and transportation, drainage, and then towns, facilities, parks, and buildings. And so those are just broad categories. And so under streets and transportation, we cover such things as roadway maintenance, bike and ped improvements, other active transportation needs, and then traffic improvements and traffic safety related. In drainage, we have overall general flood control, storm drain improvements, as well as green infrastructure and other regulatory projects that we have to do. And then that final category related to town buildings, parks, and facilities are generally related to improvements here at the town center and at the park. And so those can be related to either grounds, buildings, or other generalized improvements on each site. And so we have a variety, as alluded to in the staff report, there are a variety of funding sources that we use to fund the capital improvement program. Most of those sources are only usable for particular needs. And so that includes gas tax is only available for use for roads. We have special tax measures that were adopted throughout the county and divvied up to the various jurisdictions. Those would include Measure A, Measure W, and Measure M. And so those funds are collected through sales tax and distributed to us by the county and the Transportation Authority. And again, those are directed for specific types of improvements and predominantly related to roadway, bike, ped, and traffic safety stuff. And so the biggest pocket that you have, and you have full discretion on where to spend, is the general fund allocation towards the capital improvement program. And so we call that the capital. And so though we are going to be talking about a variety of projects, and we have a variety of ongoing projects, we have some recommendations of utilizing outside funds for augmenting certain projects, but then there's also a request for allocation from the general fund to those projects. And so with that, I'm going to start running through what we're calling the baseline projects. And so these are items that are, these are projects that are annual in nature, and we generally try and keep that funding stream relatively steady. And so one example of that is is roadway improvements. And there's a allocation, $840,000 requested annually from the general fund towards roadway maintenance. That is augmented with other funds such as gas tax, Measure A, and Measure M. Then the next item is accessibility. Historically, we funded that at around $10,000 or so a year for just basic minor maintenance. A couple of years ago, we allocated a larger allocation to fixing sidewalks in the Lloyden Park neighborhood. That sidewalk work that first round of sidewalk work kind of got done just this last week or so. But there were a couple of major areas that require more specialized design that were not included in that initial project. And so we're requesting a $100,000 allocation general fund to assist in taking care of those major locations. And we're requesting that following annual allocation be raised from $10,000 to $25,000.
So I think, excuse me, can I
Yes.
interrupt you, Robert? Councilmember Whitmer has a question, and then I also have a question about what
Yes.
is in the chart here. He hasn't gotten there yet, okay?
It
No.
was accessibility.
No. but-
Accessibility is the one that I just went
He
through.
was
I'm
just
just
talking about-
ready to hit green infrastructure.
Yeah, yeah. Yes,
Okay.
okay, good, okay. So, but my question to you is, you said it's, in the chart, it says it's a one-time, then 25,000 annually, and then now you're saying it's going to be
Yeah, so what we're
10,000
asking for is in 25, 26, an allocation of 100,000.
right?
And then following that in 26, 27 through 29, 30 at 25,000 a year.
Okay, so I don't know where the 10,000 came in.
That's what we had been
That's what we
programming
had been.
previously.
Yeah,
So we're asking for that increase.
Councilmember, Vice Mayor Holland.
So I think in the chart, is this a typo? So under green infrastructure, it says $150,000 allocation, and then the next cell it says what you just said out loud, 100K for fiscal year 25, 26, 25K after. Should that be in the cell above?
I'm sorry.
On page 11 of
We're
28?
not on that section yet.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Okay,
is-
That's what I was
is
gonna
the-
say.
I
I think
apologize.
it's in-
I'm looking at
He's looking
what's
at
on the
this-
screen
at this
there.
one, at this
And
Different
so I
attachment.
apologize if the text in the staff
I think
report
what
is a
you
little
just said
different.
out loud, where getting confused, it should be a cell higher.
a cell
There.
hire.
No,
Okay.
I'm not
'Cause it's-
confused because I also then I correlate that and I come back and look at this. And the
Yeah,
numbers are
we'll be
different.
running into that in just a
Okay.
minute.
Because I
So-
just was
Are we
concerned.
done with attachment
Yes,
3?
that's a
We're
typo.
dealing with
Yes.
this
What-
this
okay.
attachment
He was
two.
asking- okay.
Everybody get on the same page.
Great.
Attachment 2. And,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
and
see, I
he's
went
only
from
done
that to
2.
this.
And then he's in section B. B1,
all sorts of
B2,
Okay, I
and now
just
he's
make the
going to
numbers work,
B3.
you know, that's all. Try and get the numbers to work.
Okay, so let's
changed
give
it.
him, you're on accessibility?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
You're on it.
Yeah, so apologies,
It's 150.
Councilmember Whitmer is correct. The table in the staff report has a typo. And so what we have, I'm looking at,
Okay.
Yeah, okay, just,
so apologies there.
Yeah,
Not
it would
the
be
same.
really
Ah.
helpful, guys, if you tell us, from what, handout you're
Okay.
working
do.
from so that we can.
There are
follow
too
it.
many handouts.
So
so many
we're-
tables that were.
I have a
Okay.
different question.
Yes.
The only thing you mentioned specifically, I think, was Lloyden Park. Is this all Lloyden Park?
That is the only neighborhood that we have a
Sidewalks.
true sidewalk
Yeah,
area.
And we've never talked about putting sidewalks elsewhere, for safety.
no, this.
That is another project
Okay.
that we
Okay,
can, that we
okay,
will be
thank you.
talking about.
Got it.
And so this is more maintenance of accessibility of existing infrastructure.
Robert,
So,
take control now. Okay.
okay. So next item is green infrastructure. The annual allocation that we put forward is $150,000 a year. There is a need, and we'll be getting into that on the continuing project side, related to the Alameda de los Pulgas Traffic and Safety Improvements Project, which does include green infrastructure construction as part of that project. And so we can take this $150,000 allocation towards green infrastructure, use it for green infrastructure associated with that project.
DLP.
And then I'm going to say that we have two, I'll call them bucket projects. One associated here with the town center and the other with the park. And these are general improvements to both sites, one here for the town center, where there's a pocket of money that if there are minor improvement needs that we need to take care of, not related to maintenance, but improvement, that we are able to have a pot of money allocated annually for us to do that. And so whether that's landscaping improvements or other minor site improvements, we're able to take those funds to take care of those things. And then that last line there is the facility replacement fund, and I can let Robert talk about that, but I think that's one of those internal service buckets that we allocate money to annually for the eventual replacement of this lovely site. So we're not scrambling like we were when we tried to fund construction here.
Councilmember Whitmer.
So, thank you very much. You have the inlet marker replacement for 10K. I realize it's just 10K, but isn't that part of the drainage?
So what we were talking about are those baseline projects. The inlet marker is part of the continuing projects, and I'll be hitting those in just a minute.
Councilmember Whitmer likes to jump ahead. If you
No,
have
I'm
not
trying,
noticed
I'm
yet.
coordinating page 11 with this thing, okay?
We're working
Which
on
is-
the
No,
other
well,
side of
that
this.
drove this, okay, but that's okay, no problem.
All right.
That's okay, I'm sorry,
take
I
control.
got ahead by
That's all
looking at
right.
everything.
Charts, matching charts.
Yes.
Okay, so
Wait a
are there
minute.
any questions
Yes,
regarding
Councilmember DeGoya would love
regarding
to
the
say something.
baseline projects?
The baseline projects.
So I've got two questions. Can you define what accessibility is? That's one question. And my second question is, how do we know these numbers are the right numbers? Like, okay, so we've got 100,000 for the park improvements and repairs each year, and we've got 150,000 for this town center space. How do we know those are the right numbers? Where do they come from?
So for accessibility, the definition is more related to ADA and ADA compliance. So predominantly it's fixing trip hazards and those kinds of things. So that pocket of money, we allocate either towards, for example, the sidewalks in Lloyden Park, but if we need to grind down paving at the park to improve accessibility, then that's where that money.
Okay.
So that's the accessibility project. With regards to the town center and the park in terms of general assessment and repairs and improvements, to be honest, it's a guess at a bucket, and if we don't spend it, we don't spend it. It just goes back to the general fund. It's not something that we're stockpiling, but I'll try and give an example. There are things that come up that are improvements to the park, for example, and a couple things that are ongoing. So let's say, for example, the fountain that's being repaired and predominantly paid for by the Park Foundation. They're fixing the fountain unit. We're buying new pumps. We're looking at potentially putting some decorative fencing around the base of that. So this is that pocket of money where we'd be able to just pull from without saying, council, please give us, a small number of dollars to do
Yeah,
those kind of minor improvements.
I personally have a pretty good handle on that, sitting on the Park and Rec, and
Yeah.
I think 100,000 is reasonable. 150,000 for this location seems high to me, but I don't have any real perspective.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example, and this is actually an example that likely would be paid for out of the library fund. But one of the things that we're challenged with here is parking. Right? And so we have that mulch area near the courtyard
Right.
that can be converted to parking.
But that wouldn't come out of our 150,000.
I'm just using that as an example type improvement
I
project
I
that we
understand
could
that.
do.
But what would come out of the 150,000?
Trees.
For example, I've been talking about parking with Robert a lot. And occasionally you might see my vehicle parked over here next to Mr. Chen's house along that fence line there. I've suggested to Robert that maybe we could just carve out a couple of DG parking spaces along there and get 2 additional spots. That would come out of that 150,000.
But there's also the.
That doesn't justify 150,000 for me. I mean, versus 100,000, which it's only relevant if we're going to use the money for some other purpose. So if it doesn't matter and it's just sort of slush money and it's going to,
Is he still
at the end of the
talking?
year, just go back into the general pot, which is what I heard you say, then as long as we don't have a need elsewhere, then no skin off my nose.
Right, exactly.
It's this
Yes,
Well,
Councilmember Whitmer.
okay, so park improvement, if you then go and look at the opposite page, it talks about park improvements, including Jennings Pavilion resiliency. And that's scheduled to be,
No, I
the
don't know where
plan
you're
is
going.
30,000 plus 150,
It's the
which is solar
last
energy
quadrant.
plus the battery backup.
HPP
Right.
5 at the bottom.
Oh, are we
Trying
discussing
not to
that now?
jump
No,
ahead,
he's
but I'm
using that
trying to
as an
make it all
example.
flow.
But that's not a good example.
Yeah, because we're asking for money for that. Yes,
Robert, tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm looking at this, it's attachment two, clearly have delineated into a category of saying baseline, which you've discussed, and then presumably you're going to soon move on to continuing, which is on page one. And you go to page two, and it says new projects for prioritization. So as I see it, these are three different categories. It's not, the back is not, it's
Yeah.
not expanding the front. They're all separate
Yeah,
items.
so I was
Thank you.
trying to go through them in kind of a sequence with the baseline. But basically things that are kind of ongoing, continuing, just keeping that revenue, allocating that, those funds annually.
I think you're doing a good job. I think that the question that Councilmember DeGoya raises is, we're swagging numbers around. Is 150,000 for green infrastructure really 150,000, as a little bucket of money? And so maybe we want to reduce that. And then if you go over that or need to go over that, you come back to council and say, we need another 50,000 or 45,000 or whatever. But I think it gives staff the leeway to, it's like giving your kid an allowance, right? Or a credit card, prepaid credit card. Don't go over this amount.
Well, some of that is a procedural issue,
Uh-huh.
procedural challenge. So I mentioned those 2 parking spaces over there. We've also been talking about maybe restriping the spaces along the Caltrain spot. If we've got a street project going on over the summer, it might be wise to add some money to that project when we get to the striping phase to restripe these areas, because we've got a spot over there that's non-existent, you can make a compact spot, that sort of thing. Those small improvements around the town center is what this bucket of is used for. So if I, as the manager, and Robert comes to me and says that we want to do this little project over here, but I can't add it to that ongoing street project because now I've got to come back and ask the council for $5,000. That just doesn't make a whole lot. But it's a pleasure. to
Yeah,
council.
there is a cap on it. So I think that might be a discussion for council.
Yeah.
Maybe not right
That-
here, right
Yeah.
now,
Exactly.
but, it is probably a discussion for council to kind of, what kind of parameters do we really want to put around things? Councilmember Whitmer, you had your hand up one more time.
No,
Do you have
no,
something? No,
No,
you were
no.
just waving.
no, I was,
Stacy
I-
did.
my eyes water a little
All
bit.
right,
so I have
Vice
to-
Mayor Holland would like to speak.
Have we had the facility replacement fund every year?
Since last fiscal year.
Last fiscal year had it,
The bucket the council wanted to start creating.
right?
Yes, and the history of that is that, as you know,
I remember the history. I just didn't remember us
actually doing it.
actually resolving on that.
Well, because, we were still
Yeah.
paying off the loan.
Right, that's
And-
because we are still paying off our loan.
It'll be
So
done.
we're paying for 2 town centers right now.
The future
Oh,
town
well,
center.
that-
and the
in a
center.
sense, in a sense, yes.
But if we've got the money and we kind of keep their spending down a little bit, their allowance,
Yeah.
we have more.
We're paying
Okay.
for
All
today
right.
Good question.
Councilmember DeGoya,
So
discussion.
I'd say we could reduce the green infrastructure and the town improvement amounts to $100,000 because I don't see any reason for it to be different than the other things. And I have a question on this page. Is what we're doing, we're going over this page, then we're going to go to the other project?
I'm about
Yeah.
ready to talk about the continuing projects.
Which is the
So-
C1,
Continuing
C2.
projects
No,
on
no,
the
no.
next page.
No, on this page.
On this
The-
page right
the-
here.
The lower
down-
section.
Here.
But before you.
Okay,
So
got
all we
it.
should
Okay.
be-
Yeah.
So I won't address any of those.
The
Yeah.
150,000 to the ADLP for green infrastructure just means that we are reducing the other allocation to the ADLP. So it's just showing in the budget that we're going to pay 150,000 for green infrastructure as part of the ADLP project. It may be 200,000, 300,000 when that whole project is actually bid out.
But I thought Robert said that the green infrastructure is part of the ADLP project.
So,
So we're not, this isn't
so
funding that.
let me clarify. So we have, with various projects, we are required to implement structure. The ADLP project is one of those. The the annual funding for green infrastructure improvements is one of those pockets of money that we can say, well, we have a big hole in ADLP project, which I'm about to hit in a second. And we can take this year's allocation that we would have in that baseline for green infrastructure and take it and allocate it towards the ADLP project directly this year. So,
But
Why would we call it green infrastructure and not call it ADLP?
Because we're required to expend a certain amount of funds every year for green infrastructure as part of our green infrastructure master plan. So we allocate that every year. And when the council started to make the allocation for green infrastructure each year, remember we committed to spending approximately $1 million every year on roadway improvement. But every roadway improvement, we've got to do green infrastructure, as Robert mentioned. So we allocate in the budget a number toward green infrastructure and a number toward road improvements. Those two together are our
Street.
street maintenance budget.
they only add up to 990.
There's
Okay,
Measure A,
you were
Measure
rounding
B.
up, okay.
That's just general fund allocation. And it goes also toward our maintenance of effort that we have to report every year to the state. Meaning we have spent local dollars toward road projects. That allocation of green infrastructure helps meet that standard. Otherwise, we lose state money.
Makes sense. Are we ready to move on?
yes. Okay, so now we'll hit continuing projects. These are projects that have already been approved in previous budget years, and we're asking for some additional augmentation to those projects. And the first one is one of the bigger ones, is the Alameda de las Pulgas Traffic and Safety Improvements Project. As you all know, the scope of that project changed, and associated with that, the costs have gone up quite a bit. The current estimate for construction is around $4 million. In our current budget, including this current budget year, we have about 2 million remaining in the current budget, and we're asking to augment that budget by about $1.75 million. As indicated, we're not asking the general fund to pick up that full tab. We are looking at the other funds that are available to help us. And so with that, we're going to be requesting allocation with your approval of 400,000 of Measure W money, 200,000 Measure A money to kind of supplement and supplement the budget and reduce the impact from the general fund. So the general fund request is 1.15 million. Again, that 150 can be sure. And so we just got the 95% design from the consultant this week, so we need to review that. It gave us estimates. I haven't had a chance to fully go through that, but that's before we've hit the cultural resources and other things, other environmental challenges that we have with that project. So this is kind of the guess right now, but the real cost is going to be determined by bids.
Okay. Any member of the council have a question? I just
Yeah,
want to, okay, go ahead.
Just to clarify, so what you're saying is the 1.15 million in the amount column is really $1 million, and 150,000 is coming from.
You can take
the
that,
green
you can take that from the green infrastructure bucket.
How would
What-
anyone know that,
Yeah.
rather than think it's just really 1.3, everything's adding up? Because doesn't it all add, you aggregated at the bottom at 4.7 million.
Right.
Does that include 1.15 million from the general fund for ADLP plus 150,000 for green
It
infrastructure?
does if you don't allocate it towards that project.
Right, and that's what we're asking you to do, is that can be allocated toward EDMP. If that's the council's direction, that's what we'll do.
So
Right,
will
and-
that reduce the
It'll
amount under
reduce the amount by
ADLP to $1
about-
million?
Yeah.
I'm in favor.
Me too.
Me too. And just to be clear, there's no SU grant money in this bucket here.
The SU grant money is part of the existing budget.
the 2.4.
So
right?
we have
This
we
is for
have
the
a $2 million
25,
grant,
26, yeah.
and we've obligated money towards design through Caltrans. And so we are going to be partially reimbursed on that design. And we are required to complete the design, get through environmental, and obligate the construction dollars by September of this year to get that construction allocation.
Okay,
And so we're working diligently to meet that deadline.
Councilmember Whitmer?
Nope, I'm
No?
okay. I'm ready.
Councilmember DeGoa, that was a very astute comparison. So if we take the 150 of green infrastructure up there and move it down to the ADLP, then that number just becomes $1 million.
Right, and we'll reduce the 4.7 by 150.
Okay,
Right, okay.
we all in agreement?
Yes, very much so.
Okay, good.
Right.
That's good.
So
My phone.
This is how it's solved.
as
So
we approved the contracts for the Bike and Ped Master Plan, there was a desire by the council to increase the public engagement. So that's going to be an augmentation to their existing contract. So we're asking for a $50,000 allocation to kind of help bridge that gap with providing some additional public outreach, some exhibit materials that would be utilized and that kind of thing. So
That's a council decision to discuss
Yeah.
and to
so
have that in light of, do we need to add 50,000 for public outreach for bike and ped safety?
yeah, so
improvements?
again, so when we brought that initial contract to you, there was discussion by the council that increase the outreach efforts and make sure that we're hitting up certain areas of the community. Once we get the feedback on what folks want in terms of improvements, so that we can outreach to the neighbors and say, this is kind of what we heard, this is what's proposed in your, or under consideration for your neighborhood, getting that input.
Do you have an idea of what?
You already
You-
gave that, right? So we're just asking
Do
for
you
the
have any,
dollars to back
an
it up.
idea what that outreach is going to look like? Is it going to be a survey or public meetings, or what, have you thought
It's-
about that?
So right now we have an outreach survey going out, asking people what their needs are and what their desires are. Once that comes back, that information is going to be analyzed and a series of options and recommendations will be coming forward from the consultant saying, this is what we heard. These are some ideas of how we can address those needs. That's the time that we really need to outreach to the neighbors saying, this is what we're considering. Because as you know, as we've gone to certain neighborhoods, there've been a little bit of kickback in terms of what those improvements are proposed. So we're trying to get that early on in
Councilmember
Yeah,
Whitmer?
the development.
just a comment on that, where you're asking people to do the routes. It concatenates all the routes. So,
Routes.
so
So
we
it doesn't
should
let
look
you,
at
do- you
that.
should be able to do individual routes as you,
Well, I tried to do that, but it concatenated them all, so mine looks
Okay.
pretty messy.
I'll let the consultant
It's a
know
fancy
to
word
fix
you're
that.
using there, Bill. Concatenating.
That's a IT word.
Wow. like,
You know,
don't know
you
what that
cannot
means.
use jargon like that, you know, in front of,
I don't
your
know what it means,
friends.
but I'm impressed. Just
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
all right. Robert, continue.
Okay.
Okay.
So this next one, again, is another one of those big ticket projects, and we presented to you the 10% conceptual design for the Atherton Channel relining. And so the consultant is getting ready to get to the 30, it's working on the 30% design that we anticipate getting in the next few weeks. We've met with the regulatory agencies. But the initial thought is that the construction budget is going to be in excess of, or the construction need is going to be in excess of $4 million. We have about $2 million available in the already approved budgets. And so we're asking for an overall augmentation, again, of another $1 million.
Any questions from council? I have a question real quickly.
And so just let me
Go finish.
indicate one thing.
Yeah.
So that $2 million request, we're looking at offsetting with 500,000 from the Atherton Channel Fund. And so We have some money available in the Atherton General Fund, so we're saying, let's take a chunk of that. Again, offset the request out of the general fund.
Okay.
Yes, Mayor.
When One Shoreline, Ken Len Fetterman came, we asked him if we could maybe get a grant or some help with the Atherton Channel. Is that any
I have a meeting
possibility?
scheduled with him on Friday.
Okay, great.
So we'll be talking about this and about the, what do you call it? The in-stream monitoring.
Yes, yes, okay.
Well,
Which is probably more.
Don't,
Yes,
don't
Councilmember
forget the
Wood.
water capture facility, that we were gonna have him go back and talk to Caltrans.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother,
So-
yeah.
Like I say, I
Like
mean,
it.
I'll have that conversation, but I wouldn't hold breath on,
Not gonna hold our breath on that. Okay,
on
Robert?
the funds.
okay. All right.
Okay, so the next continuing project series, I think we had talked to you about previously, and that's related to the park playground and restrooms. With the feedback that we got from the council on the conceptual designs and the additional changes for surfacing and equipment and other items, the request is a $350,000 budget augmentation. Yes.
Yes, Chair.
That just sounds like an awful lot for a playground and a bathroom. Has this already been approved or were you asking for it?
So we have two projects that have already been approved. The construction budget for the playground, I think it was $1 million. And based on the conceptual designs and the feedback received by council, there are some changes requested. And so we're asking to augment that. I think the budget for the bathroom was 1,000,
800.
if I recall correctly.
It's not one
Yes.
toilet, though. It's just not one toilet.
I understand that, but that's outrageous.
I thought it was
Uh,
400,000.
No, the budget for that was eight.
This is sewage line
It's like
too.
pumps and all kinds.
That was in
Yeah,
last year's budget,
correct.
so.
You have to explain it a little bit more because it's not just a bathroom that you're building.
No, so
you
we
know.
we are replacing the bathroom structure at the playgrounds at the park. Currently, it's, I think it's a 3-stall for each side, poorly configured, not exactly accessible, outdated, dilapidated, and so we are looking at putting in a brand new bathroom building. near the
Okay, so it's
playgrounds.
construction. Okay,
Yeah,
I get
yeah.
it.
And there's pumps and
yes,
and
and-
sewer
and
lines and
so the,
undergrounding.
The sewer
Got it.
pumps, which continually
Go down.
have issues.
Right, to get that
And there was a
pumping
major
going.
issue a couple months ago that we had when the pump failed that really
Yeah,
required a lot
yeah,
of
that
clean
was
out.
not a pretty sight, no.
So,
Okay, thank you.
You're okay to
Yes.
be sensed about an $800,000
I
toilet.
have a
Yes,
bathroom thing.
Vice Mayor?
On the bathrooms, we haven't like reviewed a design on that. I don't know that it'll come in front of us. Can we make sure they're not automatic toilets? Tiny children are scared of automatic flushing toilets. So a flusher.
a flusher. Okay. Would you like that in the
Current
family
code
restroom or in
is-
the, so we're actually gonna be talking about that at the Park and Rec Committee,
Oh, cool, later.
later this evening.
The motion sensing one, because they're so little, it'll flush while they're on the toilet, and when you are potty training and they get scared from a toilet, it's a real
Scared
problem.
from a toilet.
And it,
Trigger.
and then parents like
point.
me are carrying Post-it notes around to cover the sensor and then convincing their child that it's a whole thing, so just don't do it till these parents put a flusher. The handle.
Ah, to be
Or
a new
just have
parent.
Post-it notes
really?
there to
Anthony's
be
with me.
used.
Yes, Councilmember
How
DeGoya.
dare you?
Yes.
But yeah, it's a thing. Just.
I'll get you some.
Okay,
Post-it notes.
on-
Councilmember
carried
DeGoya
Post-its
has the
around
floor.
And had to
So-
like teach it. It was a whole thing.
Okay,
The 350,000 on, it's really playground improvement. It's not on the bathroom, right?
I think that's, like I say, I've lumped them together. There's a nominal add to the bathroom, to the bathroom.
Okay,
And
I don't
that'll
know-
be,
I don't know what that is because I don't think we've talked about whatever that nominal ad is. which is not a problem, but at some point we need to
Yeah.
know specifically. And the 350,000 for the playground improvement, that was the maximum of the ad alts. And at some point, it's going to come back to us because.
Yeah,
don't
I
think
have
we
exhibits
decided
to share through, to you through the city manager that shows how we try to incorporate the comments that we got. So I've been a little bit behind in terms of providing that to you, so. Then the next one is the small project. This is the inlet marker replacements. And so on our drainage inlets, we're supposed to have something that says no dumping, drains to bay, that kind of thing. As part of our municipal regional stormwater permit, we have to validate that they are all clean, visible, easy to see. And so in last year's capital budget, we forecasted a 2-year project at $10,000 a year. And so that work is ongoing. And so we're just asking for that second $10,000 allocation for the marker replacements.
How many do we have? How many inlet or drain outlets all around? Is it like,
Say almost 300.
well, that's a bargain.
Oh, these are just the little disc things and stencils that go on them.
Yeah.
These are
Oh.
not replacing the inlets. This is just, this is just
Okay.
telling people, please don't dump.
Hey,
Okay. But, somebody's got to go and install
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, so we had an effort working with our GIS folks to create an app for our maintenance guys to go out and validate the conditions so that we know which ones need to be replaced. That work has been done and they've started doing the replacements. I think they're about 20% done with placement of the markers. And so we're just looking to get that project finished off. We have to finish it off by next fiscal year for reporting in the to the regional water board.
So these are the inlets like you have on Middlefield Road where the water goes in, right? And how many did you say we
I
have?
think we have around 300 or so.
300? I'd like to know where all of them are since we don't have gutters and things like that.
That's a good question.
I can say that they're all over the place. Happy to show you a map of them.
I'd love to see the map.
yeah,
Okay, just,
We'll
you
do
know,
that.
Thank you.
But I'll even say like even in areas that we don't, so we have inlets even in areas where we don't have curb and gutter along Atherton Avenue, along Irving, James. They're all over, Green Oaks. So they're everywhere.
Well, there's not any on Oak Grove. There's not any on Encinal. There's not any on Glenwood. Okay, there's a couple on Middlefield. I don't know where all the rest of
Okay.
them are.
Councilmember
So
Whitmer,
I'd like to
provide
see
you with
the
a map.
Are you doubting the
Yeah, I
Public
am.
Works
The
Director?
300? Yeah, I am
Okay.
doubting
He's
it.
going to give you a map, okay?
Get the map, but.
Get the map, let's
We
go on.
sounds like
My
they just
count
need
could be
better
off, but I
marking.
can provide you with a map.
Thank
Yes,
you very
let's-
much. I appreciate it.
Let's move
I
on,
look for your
please.
email.
Okay,
Let's move on.
so the last item is the last couple of items, we're not asking for any money. We're just saying that these are continuing projects that were one funded in the CIP related to the Atherton Channel Culvert and Detention System at Alameda de las Pulgas. We are still trying to get the grant that was approved. Issue. We continually check with FEMA and it's been crickets for a while. And so we're not moving forward on that project until we get some sort of commitment from the feds that we're going to get the money to.
Trumbull cancel.
Yeah.
And then the last item is something that Robert mentioned earlier, is the children's garden. It's not, again, not funded through the general fund. It's funded through the library, but it is still work that we need to
Okay.
do. Good.
All right,
Okay,
that it?
so now we move into the fun stuff.
Yeah,
The backside?
So,
Before we get started, Robert's going to go through attachment 2.
mm-hmm,
This.
But on the screen, you're gonna see the financial outlook spreadsheet. This sheet.
attachment
You're trying to
3.
confuse us.
That's
No,
because
that's-
this Robert is going, as the council says, yes, this is the project we want to do. We want to do it in fiscal year 27, 28, 28, 29.
But we can't.
This
see it.
Robert's going to add it to that.
This is exciting.
Well, okay.
Yes, we need
Stay
bigger
sharp, everybody.
screens.
You have this one here, right there, this one here.
I got it. I got it. Yeah, pull it
Okay.
up. on-
So,
Then. real
I don't,
time.
do you want to
Yeah.
give any sort of orientation on this one before we get started?
I should have brought up.
Um,
Spreadsheet.
On this one, because it's been pre-populated with a
Great.
variety of
So I'll write them
projects.
in as we
Yeah.
agree.
So
Attachment 3?
Yes.
This is attachment 3.
Thank you.
So on what Robert has on the screen, I'll do a little Vanna White.
Mhm. Well,
That's where the fourth thing is. 50. But that will change number down here.
Yep.
5.80. That's the number. That's the number. Unallocated fund balance. That's available funds for the town. Project from. That next year. That's the employee fund number. that I-
Yeah.
Allocation. No, as of that date. But it won't show up here. I know it's only show general fund. So in the future, down here, columns, right, gray numbers.
Yep.
Those are all the.
Those are the baseline projects.
And then facility, the,
Those will all, and see, don't have to add the, looking down the sheet, like key project. Everybody's gonna go through. We're almost gonna plug in other,
buckets, yeah.
as they're plugged in, and this highlighted number on the bottom. Start to flow through. That is highlighted number, larger.
And then one below.
Well, currently, there's a huge delta between them.
Plugging in projects.
That delta goes away.
Correct.
You've done this before. You had a practice drive, didn't you?
So that's
Right.
what I said earlier, as you're gonna go through that other spreadsheet, this is what staff use, because we look at the, identify the priority projects, and allocate. We can- Council has-
Yeah. Correct. The one I just highlighted. Color? Sure. Well,
Just do the, but underneath part.
Look at the hard copy.
It's at
Which
the
one, right here?
very top.
Well,
Yeah, it's at the very top of your chart.
you
Here.
already highlighted.
Here. Yeah.
although it's because
Just make it a different color.
okay.
Shade this out.
Why don't you just shade the gray ones?
I'll shade the
that
shade.
entire,
There you go.
just like that.
Blue. So this column, that 4.7 is everything Robert just discussed.
Yeah.
That's it right here. It's in here. That's the baseline and the ongoing projects that we need.
Okay? All right. Well, so I'll give you a couple of choices. So I can say, similarly as to when we talked about the types of projects in this spreadsheet on page 2 of attachment 2, the projects are categorized by bike and ped / active transportation, traffic safety, drainage, Fulbrook Palmer Park, and the town center. And so I can either walk through each category and talk about projects, give you the general description, kind of what the budgetary ideas are, and have run through all the projects and then talk about priorities and when you want to do what, or we can go through a category and you can talk about what's important in that category and try and figure out where that is. It may be beneficial to kind of run through all of them so
Mhm.
that you kind of hear them all, and then
Yeah.
we can go back and
Mhm.
talk about what's more important. Okay?
Yeah.
That's your prerogative.
Well, I think that we need to see how it affects the bottom line before we really, you know.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm going to run through the bike and ped projects first. A couple of these are really things that we think are going to be more managed by others, and so I'll highlight that as well. And so the first one is got a project number BP1, which is the El Camino Complete Streets Project. We've done, we're finalizing the initial conceptual report. You all provided feedback and gave directions on preferred alternatives to carry forward. The next two phases, which are the project initiation documentation phase and the project approval and environmental documentation phase, we actually anticipate that the Transportation Authority and and Samtrans will do the heavy lifting on that. So they will fund it. They'll hire the consultants and do that. And so though, say, we're not directly saying that we're going to implement those things, but on this next line, BP2, we will need some help in terms of project management to coordinate with them, work with them, help us do our public outreach associated with those development things. And so we're not asking for any money associated with BP1, but we are asking for money in the amount of $100,000 for consultant support, somebody like Doug Kim, who helped us with our study to kind of help guide us through that next phase for next year.
Okay. A quick question from
Yes.
me, but anyone else, please raise your hand. So the $100,000 would be just for fiscal year 25, 26. We're not going to try to spread that over.
No,
any
I
other-
can say I'm going to need a consultant for all of next fiscal year.
Yeah.
To do that. And I don't know where we're going to be at the end of the fiscal year. And so I would anticipate that there may be a request next year, depending on where things are.
Again,
And
100,000
where
seems
we
like
are
a round
expenditure
number,
wise.
but maybe it's 80,000, Doug Kim may not charge us 100,000.
Yeah, so like I said,
Council-
I don't know exactly, but I do know that I need help.
Yeah, okay. Vice Mayor Holland, you, and then Councilmember Hawkins Manwalian.
Is Doug also your point person for the drainage stuff for El Camino as well?
He has been, yes.
So he would probably do that.
Yes, so we kind of, when we hired him,
Yeah.
his focus was on El Camino, both on the transportation and managing the consultant for the work as well.
Sounds good. Let's say yes.
When
to
we
it.
saw the presentation on the pump system that would pump the water down El Camino,
I-
does that fall into this or where does that?
That's
fall?
under the drainage.
So it's totally separate, even though it would be hinging on this because we would have to do that before.
How do I phrase this? The improvement of El Camino Real in terms of bike ped, active transportation, the gap closure is a really long-term project. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. So these next couple of phases are going to take at least a couple. The next line, BP3, is what our consultant's estimate was related to the consultant estimate of what the actual construction is going to look like. That is several years down the road. It's not something that we are thinking that we are going to tackle immediately, and it's not something that we are going to tackle on our own. So as we move through those next phases of project initiation documentation, the project approval, and environmental. Those are precursors to the actual design. And so the design will happen in a few years. And again, we will see as we get closer to that, how much of that we are going to take on. We're not going to do it on our own. We're going to have to ask others for money. It's a state highway. At a minimum, we're going to be pushing the state to try and fund a good chunk of it. Otherwise, it'll be through regional, county, and or federal dollars to do the heavy lifting on the
Diana,
funding.
Sorry for not
Follow-up.
being clear, but when
could
we,
you just speak up? I can't hear you at all.
when we looked at the whole pump system that goes in El Camino, you're saying that's not in the El Camino project? We pulled that out and it's sitting in drainage? It's not part of this
Okay.
project?
Yeah.
It is anticipated that you will want to improve drainage a lot sooner than
Mhm.
the overall
so it is
street.
pulled out
So it
separately.
is, so you have other projects further down in the drainage section that we
is
will
that.
talk about related to drainage on El
Great.
Camino. Okay?
Good. The 100,000 for the
100,000
consultant, I think
is
it's fine.
for-
So can we play a little bit? Can we put that in?
You can pop it in. So that's on the bike and ped, 100,000 for
Ready,
this
Robert?
fiscal year.
You're up. Where's your
This
keyboard?
is exciting. Robert says he needs help. That kind of
25,
face.
26
Give it to
for
You need it that
consultant.
quick?
I think we should ask.
Yeah.
You think we need it that quick?
Projects.
25,
consultant?
26.
This is
For
the
a consultant.
It was gonna be years.
No, no,
before
no.
we
Well, I'm
started.
going to say,
No,
once
no.
I know exactly what we're going to be doing, I can reach out to consultants and try and, merge things as appropriate. But
Robert, could you clarify what you said? Because Councilmember Hawkins Mawalian thinks that you said something different
Okay.
I
about
thought you
needing a
said that the
consultant
project was gonna
now.
be in the future, that this whole El Camino
Okay.
project's in the future.
Okay.
So do we need a consultant now?
I
in
need,
this
I
fiscal
need
year?
consultant help while Samtrans and or the TA are advancing whatever El Camino is going to look like. We need to make sure that our voices are heard in terms of what El Camino through Atherton is going to look like. And I need consultant help while that effort is going on to work with them to keep us informed, to keep our residents informed, and to gather input as we move through those phases.
I agree. And Vice Mayor Holland.
Put it in, is
I-
my view. If
okay.
you're saying you need help,
Yeah,
then
Yeah.
we should
I
help
agree.
you.
Okay.
So
and Chair Walker.
where does it go though?
I want to,
Went to this line's gonna be green right here.
So you.
So you want to put B
Wait.
next to that?
Can you tell us what line it is and we can
BB
look on?
two.
It's line.
Because this is the interactive part.
Yeah, 29. I know, but you can
How
look
would you
on
know
your.
what is line 29?
It's
BP2.
Bike Ped Master Plan, line 29.
Oh, I see. It's
And
numbered
so
way
if
over
you
at the
come over
right.
here and in fiscal year, right now it's at 50,000. So we're going to add 100.
Oh,
Right.
We're going to add 100.
Okay,
So is-
so I'm going to say,
Okay.
so you're getting that you're working on the interactive thing that we normally try and do behind the scenes beforehand, but,
But in
this is
our
a-
chart here, Robert,
Okay.
there's already 50,000
Yes.
allocated.
So you're
So we're just going to
putting more-
add another 100.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's 150
so
now.
this is in
So
addition
far.
to what
Yeah.
you already.
Yeah, so
okay.
that 50 was part of that baseline of the continuing project request.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay,
And so we're adding to that.
okay.
Could I-
So
could
let's
I-
move on to drainage. No,
Can I ask,
yeah.
I have a question about
No,
that
no, we're
overall
not moving on to
process.
drainage.
So
We've got other things.
I know this
Well,
meeting
I
is
was just
focused
looking
on,
at-
Oh, but in
on
this
on
one.
budgeting,
Oh, okay.
budgeting for next year. But when we're talking about long-term projects like capital improvement projects, how do you reconcile the fact that really, if the council's going to agree to do something big that's going to be multi-year, shouldn't they approve it with a budget and then you tell them, well, the budget falls out? Why is it done year by year like this? Like, well, we're not sure we're going to give you the money next year on this. I don't get that.
I'll try and tackle that.
Yeah.
So
that's
the
exactly what we're
actual,
doing.
the approval of actual expenditures on a year-by-year basis. What we try and do is provide a 5-year forecast within that overall picture to kind of give, this is what we're doing this year, and this is what we foresee doing over the next 5. And so when we do that capital budget, it is with that 5-year outlook. And so, yes, we talk about a project and it's got different phases that happen in successive years. And so some stuff is immediate expenditures, other projects we're going to be talking about, we're going to say, well, we don't want to do that this year, we don't want to do it next year, but maybe we want to do it in 27, 20. So that's what this conversation's about.
But I'm pretty sure when you did the town center, I mean, that couldn't have been year by year. You had to decide, we're going to do this, and here's the plan, and here are the proposed expenses, and, yeah, maybe you overrun or whatever, but so you have something to look at and say, are we,
That's what this-
are we
That's-
doing well?
Yeah, that's what this is. That's what, but
No,
no,
that-
and that's not how it happened. That's not how the town center happened. So.
We did the design
there-
first.
there
For
was-
that, for the huge $65 million project.
Yeah.
That was done here. The council awarded a construction contract at that
At
full amount.
some-
We knew what the overall project.
Okay,
going to
so
be
that's the
Each
difference.
year over year.
Yeah.
And so if we award a project, here, for example, that's a $5 million project, that's going to take more than a year to complete, we're going to award that contract and we'll know what those phases are and we'll budget for those accordingly.
Okay.
Some of these things are coming with a grant. It says grant
No,
eligible.
I see that. I see that. But I guess this is partly because I was engaged by a resident of Atherton who had concerns in general about the capital improvement project budgets and how that works, and wanted it to be more transparent, wanted to be able to, for residents to go, get monthly reports or go online and see, okay, here was the project budget for this, which goes over 3 years or 5 years or whatever it is. Here's what we expect to spend. And then they want to compare that to what's actually spent, because there doesn't seem to be much accountability that way. It's just year by year, you kind of go, well, this year we need this much. And then the next year you come back, well, we actually need more or we need less. I just don't understand
And
that.
we actually did that for the town center project. We produced a spreadsheet that told the council each month and showed the.
I remember
council where
that.
we
Yeah.
were On the
Yeah.
project.
That was after it was designed.
Yes.
Yes,
after we
had-
awarded the
had-
construction
But, some of this has not been designed yet. So that's the difference. This is kind of for consultant, for design support, and then we get the numbers happening. So we don't have a ballpark, a firm amount of how much we're going to spend on the complete streets.
Okay.
Caltrans is
Nothing
going to
that's
spend it anyway.
And there, Caltrans is going to, yeah, but we need to have a
Not
consultant,
ours.
advocating for us, because otherwise we're just going to get buried.
I just wanted to make sure I
1.5.
understood the overall
Yeah.
process here.
Okay, so where are we? Did it
Okay,
show
we're
up?
still on bike and ped.
Okay,
Any numbers that you add are only going to be added to that top line that you
Yeah,
see
yeah,
on that
got
chart.
it.
Okay.
the
So-
top line,
Yeah, the 150?
Yeah.
We're just talking about bike ped.
right.
So any project you pick
Oh,
is gonna get added just to this.
okay,
And
so,
the column
what,
next
right, got it, okay.
Okay. So, next project is BP4, which is the El Camino Real Selby intersection improvements. This is related to
Yeah.
safety improvements at the intersection.
Mhm.
This is a priority that the council indicated that they wanted to tackle. The ballpark estimates right now are around $500,000 to do the design, including project management support, and about 2.5 million for ultimate construction. Using a high end, assuming that I'm doing a traffic signal right now, because I don't know exactly what we're doing, versus a hawk beacon, so that costs a little more. This is a project that you can budget design next year and construction a couple years out, because it's going to take a while to get through Caltrans. This is also a project that is grant eligible. We've heard from the TA that they think highly enough of this project that they will encourage us to apply. The grant cycle is such that the grant call for projects is anticipated to release somewhere around July. But money for that won't be coming available through the grant till the end of the year, beginning next year. But that's within the fiscal year, so yes.
Yeah, so I'd like to see that put in, but only for the design. That's just my 2 cents, because it's grant eligible. So if
Yes.
something's grant eligible, I don't think we should be making the decision to fund the construction.
Okay,
Sorry
Throwing
about
my
Vice
that.
Mayor?
hands over. To apply for the grant, do we have to be shovel ready?
No, the grant that we would apply for would be to design and build.
Get shovel ready.
And
Yes.
so,
Shovel
but-
ready, okay.
So,
But you've
grants are
got the
different.
category of 500,000 as design paren shovel ready.
But that's, he just said that's a grant we're going to apply for.
well, what
Oh.
I'm saying is that it's eligible, but you can tell me do it regardless of whether you get the grant, you want this done, get it shovel ready and then apply, or
Make that decision.
get ready to apply for the grant. And if we get it, great, that'll reduce our expenditures. If not, move forward anyway.
Yeah.
Are we discussing this now? Our
Yes.
opinions?
Yes.
Well, I'll
they-
remind everyone, this is the most deadly intersection of our entire town.
course.
There's been all sorts of issues, so my opinion is do this one ASAP.
Yeah,
Should have
yeah.
been done years ago. People die there.
Yes, Rick.
I think that we can't make a decision on what we're going to do with that intersection until we engage the local community. And because this has been discussed a couple times in the past at a significant amount of effort, both by the town and by the residents, and we need to re-engage the residents. We should not be making a decision until we've engaged the residents.
Right. We tried to do that in years past because Caltrans came and said, this intersection is dangerous. We want to put a signal there, and, the warrants are there, and we go, okay. But then we engaged the residents, and the residents came out and they said, no, 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 no. So we backed off. The residents, we don't know how they feel now. It may be entirely different, but to get their support is really critical.
And that would be part of that design phase, meaning that we're hiring a consultant to come up with conceptual ideas of what the improvements would look like. We can run that through the community,
But
bring that feedback back to you to say, these are the options, this is what we heard, and
so Robert,
yes.
I don't think the cost would be $500,000 to do that pre-work and to, do the schematics, the design, not the full-blown design. but
Conceptual.
The conceptual, because I remember we had 3 different options with schematics and everything. I don't know if we want to bring those out of the archives and look at them again, but
Sure.
I honestly, so I'm not, I don't think I want to approve a $500,000 number here. If we're going to do the preamble and the schematics and then do some public outreach before we get a big sense that we can move forward. I know that public policy, sometimes we're put in a difficult situation as public leaders to make a public policy decision that may override what the majority or the majority of a minority, want, because they may not really know what's best for them, like Councilmember Hawkins Van Williams said, it is a very, very dangerous intersection, and people have died there. But people die along Middlefield Road, in terrible accidents, because accidents happen. But anyway, so I think we should take it a little
Okay.
slower.
So that's fine, but can I ask a supplemental question to that? Let's say that we take that number and cut it in half, right, to get through that initial outreach phase. I'm still thinking that we want to apply for the overall grant,
Mhm.
which would include public outreach, design, and that kind of thing. And so we would have your reduced allocation and either A, use it to match the grant so that we can get through the entire thing, that through that initial phase, and you'll budget the match required for construction later. And if we don't get that grant, then use the money for that public outreach and conceptual design. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just asking, the
What would that be?
500,000 to 250.
500,000 seems too
No,
expensive.
no, okay,
That's her
so
point.
what I'm
That's-
getting at is that if, from what I'm hearing, I'm thinking I'm gonna cut that, we can cut that 500 in half to get through, because I'm gonna say, in addition to the designer that's actually doing the stuff, we're gonna need to do traffic studies and those kinds of things that we're gonna need to kind of get through the Caltrans effort. And I'm gonna need project management support for that project.
Hmm.
I can't just manage it
want
on my
that.
own.
Mhm.
We want
So-
you to have that
Okay.
support.
We have multiple
So I
questions.
don't necessarily want to go less than that 250 for
Okay.
that first year.
Diana, and then Stacy, and then Bill.
Just for everyone's consideration, I live in that neighborhood and I think that the opposition, that's ancient history. I think the people that live there now don't feel that way. And I think the situation has changed. There's way more traffic there. So I think that let's not look back and let's look at the actual
No,
statistics and
But
numbers.
we need to do the survey. Stacy?
Yeah, I agree with what Diana said. I think we did this local road safety plan. We have all this data. That's our hotspot in Atherton. And we have a responsibility to our community and to people who are coming through our community to make sure they're safe. And we know that intersection, we have the data. It's not a safe intersection. We also know from when we were looking at that neighborhood for housing, the neighbors came out en masse saying that that intersection was too difficult for them already because of traffic, that they wanted a turn light. A lot of them in that meeting were commenting that they regretted that they had opposed that light now. So I think from my perspective, we should be applying for the grant, but moving forward regardless of whether or not we have that grant, because this is an important safety. I mean, just looking at all the data, it was a spike compared to every other intersection. So
We
what are we
also
doing? if
We
not-
also rezoned recently too for multifamily in that neighborhood. That's going to require that light to go in there too. So there's a lot of reasons.
Wait,
Oakwood.
the only rezoning is 23 Oakwood.
Yeah, we didn't rezone.
That, when you build that, you're going to need that light. Right now, Atherton residents go up that street to get to the light they go through Oakwood. That's how people don't turn left on there. Certain times of the day, you cannot physically turn left on 3 lanes of El Camino. So the people that live in the neighborhood, we all go through, which is why Redwood City residents put a do not drive this way residents only sign for a while,
Hmm.
because they were trying to block us from all going through there. So if that gets built on Oakwood, it's no question it has to go in. And that was part of our discussion with that as well. And we did rezone that. So that rezoning has already happened.
Okay.
That's the point I was
Bill.
making.
So I was on the council when we had the people come and say that they did not want to have a stoplight there. And we did look at other alternatives such as no left turn and things like that. And so I believe that, I would say the 500 seems reasonable if we want to get the grant in there, but I think starting a little slower, I do believe we need to do something there, including getting input.
Mhm.
So I would be willing to go with the 250 to start with, to allow us to look at it, get input from the people and things like that, and then make a decision, as opposed to just go whole hog today.
City manager.
Just a reminder as the council looks at the studies that are being done, when staff goes out to the community to talk about potential intersection designs or crosswalks or sidewalks or bike lanes or traffic, we need data, accurate data, recent data, current data, whatever, however you want to characterize it, in order to answer the questions that the public's going to ask. So that's the information Robert needs at a minimum. We go out and start to do public outreach on any particular project.
Right.
So do you think
That
it's going to
250
cost more
would
than
cover it.
Make sure
250?
that when he's telling you this is kind of what I need, that's what he's.
The
That
five- the-
sounds
the
like 250
250.
is reasonable for that.
Well, that-
Okay.
That's what,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Robert? Okay, let's move on. Robert Barone the third,
All right, so.
plug it in.
Moving on, the rest BP 5 through BP 9 are Selby Lane bike lanes, Atherton Avenue bike lanes, what we're terming as the Station Lane connection, which is a ped improvement from Maple to Watkins, and then the Watkins connection, which is along Watkins from Station Lane to El Camino Real. And then there's the Marsh Road Bike and Ped. These are all projects that, we have in our minds as things that are needed, but we're in the initial stages of the Bike and Ped Master Plan. And so the recommendation is before moving forward with any of these immediately to really get feedback from our community to know where our bike and ped priorities are. And so they're provided here for information purposes and maybe plugging in out years, but we're not asking, don't think that we need to allocate any money this current fiscal year for those unless
Yeah.
one of those is a council priority.
Councilmember Whitmer.
The Watkins connection, as I've pointed out in meetings there, that's a dangerous intersection for kids. Because you got the rail tracks higher. I realized talking to George, maybe we have to have something go, towards ECR and then cross over, but something needs to be done there. So I am not in favor personally of taking that off and saying, we'll just forget about it until after we do the bike and ped master plan, because it's a problem that we have today and it will continue to be a problem until we fix it. And I think we should fix it.
Okay.
I should have fixed it last year when I said something. This year it should be fixed. Thank
So
you.
I have a comment. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
When do we think we'll have that master plan back? Is that in the calendar here? Do we have an idea? So,
Bike ped
because we're
master
built,
plan.
yeah. Because if that's
So-
going to trigger a
Gonna
bunch
be
of
next year.
decisions, do you
Yeah,
know when
so-
we'll get that?
With all the
It should be, we should have recommendations on improvements late in this calendar year.
Okay.
So right now, we're on the information gathering of what people want. That stuff will be analyzed. I think the survey is open through part of June and it may be extended if we don't get enough feedback. But I would anticipate that stuff will be analyzed through July and August, and then we'll kind of start getting a sense of kind of where people think we need improvements.
So those decisions from that will come in 2006, next year? Next
They'll
year,
be-
we'll have it and we'll be making those decisions next year?
We'll be able to make some budgetary decisions next year as to where you want to spend money.
So my comment is on this list is the station lane connection to the park. I think that is really, I think that's important because it will kind of finish the town center's accessibility for walking from that road and from the park and connecting the park. So I think that's a really important thing to try to get done sooner rather than.
I have a comment.
And yes, of course.
I agree with that comment. I think of this list of the remaining items, there shouldn't be any funding for the Selby Lane or Atherton Avenue bike lanes.
Right.
I think that the Marsh Road bike ped thing shouldn't be funded. I mean, that's something that at some point we will want to discuss. We've had quite a bit of past discussion on that. And the idea of covering the channel to make it a bike ped lane is very attractive, I think. But I think the priority is the station lane connection. And both to improve the bike and pedestrian way on Station Lane, but also there's maybe some possibility for adding parking, which is obviously needed. I'm not sure there is, but I'm just saying that's something we need to look at because obviously we've got a parking problem with the interest.
If that's a priority for us to look at,
Mhm.
add that to this year's station
I would like that.
design.
I would like that,
So
yeah.
I'm going to highlight that there are some significant trade-offs on Station Lane. Station Lane is very narrow. There are heritage trees on both sides and some really big ones on the property side.
Right,
And then you have vegetation that screens the tracks.
right.
And so the roadway is narrow, the sides are narrow, and they're encumbered. So there are going to be some significant trade-offs. Not going to say, I'm not going to predispose what those are, but there are going to be some trade-offs and challenges along Station Lane.
Do you think about a,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Would you consider making it one way?
It's just
That's the only way you're gonna
We
get
can
space.
consider- I mean, say, I'm not predisposing anything. What I am saying is that there are going to be trade-offs. And so whether it goes one way, decisions are going to have to be made, how that routing is going to be. If it is going to remain as two-way and which side we're going to look at. I mean, these are all things that'll happen as we go through that concept
Councilmember.
stage. Yes.
Isn't this, George, didn't you have some ideas about working with the library potentially
Yeah.
on this?
Yeah.
So in order to get access to that money, probably we need to have a design. Yes,
Oh,
or,
Up
you know,
to
to
you.
work with the library on this, so.
We would, the idea is that there are to be library events and activities in the park
Yeah.
and open areas of the park, et cetera. So that means there needs to be a safe and passable connection between the library and the park,
Yeah.
which is a reasonable use of library funds.
Mhm.
So it would be in support of whatever we're doing on this project. We don't have to have a design in order to get those funds. We can use those funds in support of this project, in addition to town funds.
Including the design, hopefully. Okay.
Councilmember Whitmer.
Yeah, and so what we're talking about will also include crossing Watkins somewhere safely.
Yeah.
Okay,
And the intersection.
I did
so
that
I'm
last year.
100% in favor of that.
So we have on the chart, the budgeted amounts of 150 for the Watkins Rail connection.
No station.
Correction, I think that we're talking Station Lane as the
Lane-
priority.
Station Lane,
Station
yeah,
Lane's 120.
20.
Oh, yeah, Station Lanes,
But the
120.
Watkins to ECR connection is really talking about from the rail tracks
To El Camino.
Yeah,
Oh, on Watkins.
On Watkins, what, maybe putting a sidewalk in there, but we should do that when the Watkins light is addressed.
Right, okay,
right.
yeah, good, okay, got it. Okay, so we're doing the
Okay.
120.
so now we're
Okay.
moving to traffic safety.
We added BP7, 120.
Okay,
Okay,
Okay.
all right. So that gets us through bike and ped.
Yeah.
Thank you. Our next couple are related to traffic safety, traffic and safety. So the first one is TS1. It's more of an aesthetic thing. Our streetlights throughout the town are extremely old and haven't been maintained and paint. We take care of them to make sure that they're working, but aesthetically they need some attention. And so what we're proposing is to initially fund first year in the capital program and then move it into the operating budget moving forward so that we have an ongoing
Maintenance.
program
Mhm.
to refresh and repaint our streetlights.
I personally think that's a great idea because people will see it. It is something that people will go, oh my gosh, they're really paying attention to our streetlights and making it beautiful. I think this is something that we should do. Sorry.
No. So, Tom, you know the answers. Didn't Lindenwood put in new streetlights like 7 years? Or we just paint, what did we do?
Yeah.
There's something that looks
Yeah,
different.
we did a, what do you call it? A series circuit streetlight conversion in a couple of spots, including Lloyden Park and Wood, where they were high voltage lights. And so we converted them to more normal electricity so that any electrician can work on it as opposed to having PG&E shut down the transformer and stuff so people.
Okay, so it was
Okay.
totally
So
different
we did
idea.
that, and as part of that, lights were replaced and poles refreshed and painted. So we took care of that, but we have a whole town that
Yeah.
needs attention.
Okay, got it.
So we're not talking about replacing all of the light poles. We're talking about freshening them up and cleaning.
Okay, that's fine.
Any other
Good.
comments about this?
Good idea.
Then do I have council support?
Yep.
Put it in.
Okay. That is TS1. All right, so TS2 and 3 are related. And through the various studies that we've done, we've
100%.
determined the need for putting in traffic signals at the Middlefield Fair Oaks intersection and at the Middlefield Watkins intersection. So kind of given budgetary numbers to get the design and construction done, recommend doing one before the others. You're not doing both at the same time. But so these are.
Which one do you prefer?
I'd probably go for the one at Palmer Fair Oaks. And I'm not saying that the Watkins one is also really needed. I say they're both really needed. There's some analysis going to need to be done at the Watkins one because of the proximity to the Fair Oaks intersection.
Right, the marsh.
There's not a, is there a crosswalk at Fair Oaks?
No.
No,
No, there's
No.
not.
There's a crosswalk at Watkins.
Yes,
There is.
yes.
Both.
And you've got the stoplight, which does, you know, kind of.
stop sign.
Stop,
The
But it
the
does
Marsh
not have a
Road
flashing
stoplight.
beacon.
Marsh
She's
Road
talking
stop.
Marsh
You
Road.
get a flashing
oh, yeah,
beacon if
but
you're not
I
going
mean,
to put a
it's-
light there.
At Watkins is miserable. It's absolutely miserable and it's dangerous. It's anytime near, 4 o'clock and afterwards. It's like, I just avoid it like the plague because, there's not enough room. You can't get in the right turn lane. I mean, I want to turn right, but I have to wait for all these idiots to turn left. If you had, if you,
That's me.
if you had a traffic light and you made it so that the right turn lane was a little bit, extended a little farther, you'd have a lot less
Yeah.
road rage and probably a lot fewer accidents. Because people get really upset there and then they try to pull out in front of the traffic. It's very dangerous.
You want Vice Mayor and then Diana?
I was just gonna ask, I assume we'll use
Then I'll be
actual
there.
traffic data to decide which one to use, to do first.
It's the,
Well, we're going to use actual traffic data to design them. That kind of thing. But if you want an analysis done on which one first, then get that done.
council member, did you already do yours? No, Vice Mayor.
Yeah,
ahead.
it's a lot of lights in a short amount of time.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that
So I say, I mean, the one at Watkins is really close to the one
and then we'll have Fair Oaks.
at Marsh.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the challenge there is going to be how do you accommodate a left turn when you have a backup on Middlefield that already extends past that intersection?
Exactly, yeah.
And so, like I say, it's
It's a mess.
one's easier than the other.
Yeah.
And then we also, just a reminder, at that intersection, we have the channel that takes the turn. You have an open
Watkins
channel
over.
along Watkins, and then it turns into a box culvert and goes underneath the shoulder on the side, on the west side of the road. So there's going to be some minor challenges on.
Diana. And then, was it you? I'm blind over here. I'm kind
Gotta
of,
keep your hands on.
I'm blind over here.
Councilmember DeGolia.
So I drive those roads a lot, as I know Ann does, and I'm probably at Fair Oaks and Middlefield every day. I actually don't see a big problem there. I'm able to get through it going in any way. You just have to be patient. Yes, you have to wait, but it's not like Watkins. Watkins is a disaster. Now, I'm not saying we should do Watkins because I think it's a problem. It's a problem because of the channel and it's a problem because it's so close to Marsh Road, but it's a problem. So in my opinion, if we really wanted to spend $1 million, and I just note that our estimate is it costs $1 million for each of these lights, Whereas to put a light at Selby Lane, we're saying it costs $2.5 million.
It's a bigger intersection.
I'm just pointing out,
But you have to understand, it's a bigger.
well, but it's a light, you know?
It's just,
Well,
go ahead, Diana.
so
And we
I'll-
wouldn't
I'll
pay
give
for it
you
all.
Okay,
Some reasons why
Diana,
it'll be a
yeah.
lot more expensive at Selby.
yeah.
Well, there's a
Okay.
drainage issue there. I
Well-
understand that.
Re-
Well,
Putting that aside.
yeah.
Okay.
As opposed to putting a light that is hanging over one lane, you're going out over three. You have a left turn pocket, you have to go past that. So your
It's a much,
poles and everything are
Yeah.
significantly
And-
bigger.
And it's the priority of all these.
Yeah.
I agree
And-
with that.
okay.
I'm just pointing out.
Odds are we're going to we have to reconfigure medians to put in pedestrian refuges. There's going to be in the median a push button for somebody that can't make
Okay,
it all the way across.
That's,
So it's,
Diana, okay.
and there's
let's-
Caltrans.
I understand.
So-
Diana,
I was just gonna say, related to this, I assume we're gonna talk about our traffic modeling software because
That's
If we-
next.
wait,
That's
wait,
next.
Diana, come on,
Okay, you
don't
can't
jump
get
ahead.
ahead
Let's
of the
finish this
game.
up here, okay?
Can I make
Okay.
a suggestion on these two
Yes,
items in
yes.
particular? One of them, like Fair Oaks, could be a hybrid kit or something like that to allow pedestrians to cross. And the other one might be a full signal or vice versa.
Or a flashing
Or a
beacon
flashing beacon.
at the
as best
crosswalk.
Solution, but maybe as part of these studies to get them into the shovel-ready phase,
Mhm,
Robert and his team figure that out.
mhm.
Which one's a priority for a signal? Which one would be solved with a flashing beacon or something else?
Fine. How
So-
much does that cost?
Vice Mayor, well, wait a minute. The studies will cost the 180 and 150,
Well-
okay? That's the studies.
Well, I
Yes.
think that we can probably get by with about
Mayor. I
100 or
understand.
so
I'll go
to do
after
the
her.
analysis.
Good.
Both or?
Okay,
So,
Vice
to
Mayor?
kind of plot out what they might look like on a conceptual level.
Good
Right.
idea.
Okay, Vice Mayor.
I was gonna suggest what George had said of looking at them both, because I imagine adding a light on Fair Oaks might have an impact on Watkins, perhaps. So I think studying both of them in tandem and having recommendations for them both makes sense, because seems like a lot of lights in a very short order. I appreciate there's an issue there, but 3 lights are like in
It's a
sequence, it's a
corridor.
lot.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Councilmember DeGoya.
okay, so I just want to point out, there's also a third item down here, which is the ECR Atherton Avenue intersection. And I don't think there's any pedestrian problem at Fair Oaks and Middlefield. I mean, there may be a very small one, but I don't ever see pedestrians there. I see pedestrians at Atherton Avenue and ECR all the time. And I see cyclists stopped at that intersection, and that's a real problem intersection. It's not as big a problem as Selby Lane, but it's a problem for pedestrians in particular. It's a
crazy.
very difficult intersection. So
So,
I don't think we need to do anything at Fair Oaks and Middlefield. I think Watkins is a problem, but I feel like it's a problem. I don't know how to fix that problem.
So
I don't know that a light will fix that problem.
I understand what you're saying about Fair Oaks and Atherton Avenue. And I just want to make a comment about the Watkins, because I go there all the time because my business is in Santa Clara and that's my route to get from my house to 101. And this one thing that happened is they kind of made this extra lane when you turn from Watkins onto Middlefield. It's like it
about
does,
a car length.
huh?
It's about a car length or so.
It's a car, yeah, width. And so if you can get over there, while the people are stopped at the stoplight and let the, Lindenwood, Middlefield, you can get over there. And so that has really helped my access. And so I don't find it a big problem, and I don't have road rage about it. But that's my experience with Watkins because of that additional buffer lane.
All right. What about
Yes.
putting there's the crosswalk there, but there's no flashing beacon.
Flashing beacon
Put a
would be great,
flashing
I think,
beacon to help
as a-
people
as a
cross
start.
over.
Might be
Fair
good.
Oaks, we
Yeah.
can leave for now.
Would be good.
Okay, Diana, and then we got to close this down
Yeah, I
because
have
we're
a
getting
real
late.
problem with us deciding traffic decisions in a group like this
Okay,
based on what
so
we
I-
do.
Well,
Let's look
yeah.
at the studies
So,
and let's
so
look
can
at the
can I
software.
recap what I heard? And so just basically put money towards doing an analysis of the two intersections, what the right solutions are for those, whether it's prioritizing signalization at Watkins or what I heard potentially a pedestrian hybrid beacon, the hawk beacon to
Yeah,
stop traffic. That definitely will help with the pedestrian traffic, but it won't help with the vehicular movement. But we can do the analysis, get the, get the traffic data associated with that as a precursor to doing any full designs. My comment with regards to the El Camino Atherton Avenue intersection, it is an important intersection. My recommendation is to push that analysis into the El Camino study. Have them, again, kind of try and do that heavy lifting because they're going to be also coordinating with Caltrans, which will have to buy into whatever happens there as opposed to what we have full authority over.
that sounds
And so if
reasonable.
we can kind of push that as an item for their heavy lifting in the beginning and see how that pans out.
Okay,
So
so he's gonna
Uh,
say what number it was.
I think that we can do the study for both of those.
120 for both of them.
For,
Just-
But
for
do we
which
need to
ones?
the
do it for
analysis
Fair
and
Oaks
stuff.
and Millfield? I don't know why.
If you
we
don't
need
want
to
me to do the middle field, but
Fair
like I say, I
Oaks.
think that, okay. So-
Again, the problem is if you put a stoplight there and the traffic is backed up from Marsh past that, because I see that all the time, then you can't, even if it's a green light, you can't turn on to it.
Well, you put a big thing that says, do not stop an intersection. That's illegal anyway.
No, but
I don't think.
you're missing the point.
Just say keep clear.
Anyway, okay,
I
so
think we
let's,
should,
go
I think
ahead.
we should do the study for Watkins and
Yeah.
Middlefield.
I agree.
just do it all. Why not do it all?
No, he said Watkins, oh.
Watkins and Middlefield.
Middlefield,
So
Not-
just
not
Watkins,
Fair Oaks.
not Fair Oaks?
So how much is that?
120, did
No,
you
it's
say?
less than 120.
Well, do you want me to do the study and design or just do the study?
Study,
Study and come back with a recommendation.
yeah.
Can I make
Diana?
a comment?
Yes.
Probably
I
get done
find
with
this very
half.
backwards
Right.
because we're arbitrarily picking individual things. We're putting money at a static, one-time analysis that we get. By the time we talk about it, and the data we're using is backwards. If we go in and we model our entire city with the new technology, we model it all, we in real time can use current data. So if all of a sudden the school changes, we can look at the change of the number of
That's the next
traffics.
item.
But then, yeah, I know, but it makes sense to look at that first, because if you do that first, you don't need to do all the other studies, or maybe you do, but maybe you don't need to spend as much money.
We'll recommend that
done
we
that.
put it in.
We've got that data. The TMJK, is that what study?
JK.
No,
We've
she
got
wants
that
to
data.
buy some special software.
That does
Traffic,
real-time
yeah.
modeling with
So-
current data, so we're not making
Okay,
decisions
Diana.
based
I'm
on
not, I
data
have
2 years
something
ago.
Vice
about
Mayor.
Atherton. Okay, so about Atherton Avenue ECR, that intersection is a problem, I agree. It also does not have the magnets on the Fair Oak side to detect bicycles. So on the intersection of El Camino and on the Fair Oak side, not the Atherton Avenue side, when you are on a bike, you watch the light cycle over and over until a car comes behind you, which is, and given that you cannot jump out and then go hit a button to like,
Stop them, like
because
you
it's
do at Alejandra,
around the
yeah.
corner
Mhm.
on El Camino, it's,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is
So
not
it's
safe.
it's a
So
very dangerous situation.
I'm wondering if that is a small project.
That is something that the signal and the intersection belong to Caltrans.
Even the
It-
Fair Oaks bit of it.
Yeah.
All of it,
Whatever's
because
tied into
it's-
the traffic signal is going to be theirs. We can certainly outreach to them and ask them to appropriately accommodate cycle traffic at the
Like
intersection.
the little,
Yeah, well, they put the detectors
there
in,
isn't one.
in
Remember
the
George and I
pavement.
looked at the Google Maps?
So that's something I wouldn't put as a capital. I think that we could just outreach
Maybe
to
we-
Caltrans
maybe
to
we
try and
should
see if we can
take
get
this
that
up
done.
with the Transportation Committee
Yeah, I was
and
just
have
wondering,
them
like,
study it a little bit more, because we're not,
Without the
we-
calc-
No, we'll just
Yeah.
reach out to Caltrans and see if they can add that, make sure
Alright.
that that detection is there.
okay.
Thank you.
So what did we decide on these three?
100K.
Okay,
Okay.
Watkins only. Analysis and bringing it back to the council.
okay, all right.
Okay.
Now, we're going to move on to.
Now we're going to
the
move
next
on
one,
to the traffic modeling.
Modeling
Um,
software.
Yeah, so
that-
we outreached to a couple folks and as an initial budget to build out a model on one of the softwares, we're thinking it's probably going to cost around 60,000 to get the license and to have somebody build it out for us.
What's it do?
It basically would be a built-out traffic network model for the town that you could theoretically input what the traffic flows are. I'm not quite sure about the real time, the softwares that I've seen,
Mhm.
with the exception of the one that they use for the evacuation routing. Not many of them are tied into real-time data.
Right.
But we would
Redwood
basically,
City, does Redwood City or Menlo Park use this for their traffic?
I don't believe so.
Can I make a
Yes,
comment?
yes.
The county of San Mateo has licensed Lattice, which is a real-time evacuation software package.
Hmm.
And for each city, they're gonna come in and meet with our police department, they're gonna model our town. And what they use it for is that they can model so that they can then tell us where to go. So
Hmm.
that they'll feed that data into our evacuation software. The same software, to a lesser degree, can be used to do the exact same thing that we're doing. You'll need modifications because they're not gonna model it, but you should be able to say, if we drop a light on this street, they can take data and they can see how it's gonna back up and say, oh, well, if SRI gets built and you all of a sudden have 800 apartments coming in, that's gonna change the entire traffic patterns on all of those streets. So we can model them in anticipation or even in real time, because right now we look at data that's very old and are making decisions, like Selby Lane has changed as a school, and we're still looking at that from before. So I'm saying that if we do this, and we're already gonna get part of it free from San Mateo County. Now, I don't know whether Lattice is the correct solution. We're happy to get that one, and they are willing, from what I've heard, to take some money to take what they're already doing for our town to add the part to make it, which is easier. What we're trying to do is easier than what they're doing with the evacuation in real time. So that's where I think we should do. And I think that will bring us into the new generation of being able to make these decisions that aren't based on hearsay, and you can model different changes forward.
We have spoken to Ladris. While they do provide that, they don't do the engineering and traffic engineering component of it. So that's where Robert needs to engage a traffic engineer in that solution, and we have to bid it. So it
Yeah.
may or may not be Ladris, and the license we get from the county is only through December.
Right,
of this
that's,
year.
yeah.
So,
Hmm.
So there's a timing
That
thing involved with
doesn't
using them.
seem
uh,
enough.
And it requires investigation.
That does not
And
seem
and to
enough.
my knowledge, what they do is they say, it's kind of like Waze and traffic information. I don't remember what the service was.
Use the data from phones, so
yeah.
they use real-time
So-
traffic where your car is.
But it's on an existing network and it's different than saying, want to plop a traffic signal. Their software doesn't exactly
Yeah, they'd
do
have
that.
to modify it.
And so I outreached to a couple of, including Lattice, to kind of see what that might cost. And so we think it's about 60, but we're going to have to hire somebody to,
I think we need
build
more
it out.
information. I'm not, yes, Vice Mayor.
It seems like this would maybe be something for the transportation committee to look at and make a recommendation on, instead of
Yeah.
us
Discussing
imagining.
it, yeah.
Like there's nothing for us to look at right
Yeah.
now, so maybe they come, whoever, if you think is appropriate, comes in and does a presentation to the people who are focused on this issue.
Would we like to see the Lattice, which is coming to our town? Do we want to see a demo of that at one
I
of
don't
our
know.
council
I have
meetings?
no input on that. I think the Transportation
So-
Committee should take a look at
It's
it.
an
Well,
emergency. It's an
I don't
emergency.
mind having the
She's talking about
Transportation Committee
evacuation
take
stuff.
But
the,
I
that's-
think we
do
want to
the
see a
analysis
presentation on
or
that, but
help
that's not this
select.
That's not
discussion.
But
this,
this
But-
would
Or
build
even
on
if it's
that,
worth
though,
it.
that piece
Huh?
of
I don't
stuff.
Or
know,
even if-
maybe.
is
Okay.
useful.
Yeah, just
One
one.
more question, one more
That's
question.
just a question to Robert.
Yes.
Do you feel this would be useful to you and is something that you would use? Or is it just something that, that's the bottom line, is it's for
So-
you?
I'm gonna say, there are some benefits to it. The reality is I'm not a traffic engineer and I don't have the time to play with models.
Yeah.
And so if we develop a model, we would be engaging an engineering firm to help build it out and to run scenarios, and we would pay them on a scenario, likely a scenario by scenario basis on what the impacts are. I
So they
think
would
that there-
probably have this tool or a tool like this?
What's that?
They would probably have a tool like this then?
They likely have tools, but they wouldn't necessarily have a built-out network of our town.
Where this originally came up is a way to educate not only the community, but the council as well. When you're looking at El Camino Real, or you're looking at Selby or any other street, and you're saying, what happens if we narrow this roadway by 1 lane? What happens to the traffic? Where does it go? If we put a light at Selby, does it all go down this way? Not down Selby Lane as opposed to continuing down ECR. And it was a way to put that up on the screen and say, here's real time. This is
That
how it
seems
would
like it'd
actually
be worth
flow.
it.
And so that helps the council make a decision. That's where it originally came up in terms of a conversation. It is useful, as Robert says, but we have to engage a consultant to use it.
To
I think
build
we're
it.
too small
I'd
of a
have
town.
let the
And to
transportation
use
committee
it.
And to
Go
use
over
it.
the
He's not a
issue.
traffic engineer,
Okay.
so he's not gonna be
We're
making-
moving on. We're going to let the transportation committee take a look at it. Okay? So where are we? Because it's getting
Okay, so
late.
now we're on drainage.
Right.
Okay, so as you all know, our master plan is rather dated. It was developed back in 2014. At some point, we do recommend refreshing it. It may not be something that you do this year, but we do want to keep it on your radar of something that has to be done. The priorities, as we understand it, other than dealing with the Atherton Channel, is El Camino Real. And so based on the initial concept that was done, that was presented to you with a pumping station, further evaluation has been done. We're actually recommending that there be two. So one pumping station located at Selby and another one down at Isabella. So the one at Selby would conceptually include a pipe that extends southward to the Stockbridge is the next block.
Okay.
Yeah,
Stockbridge.
Stockbridge is it.
So they would have a connector to Stockbridge to collect drainage from Stockbridge, bring it to Selby, have a pumping station there and pump north along El Camino Real towards Redwood City. And then at the south end, picking up from Almondral, going southward towards Isabella, collecting and dewatering to the channel. So we have our report that is coming to us shortly, finalizing the recommendations and giving us those costs. These are kind of what we think it'll be. It makes sense to tie the El Camino Selby drainage improvements to the El Camino Selby Improvement Project. That way, if we get money for constructing the improvements at Selby, we'd be able to use some of that to offset our expenses on the pumping station. It won't extend down, it won't pay for extension down to Stockbridge, but it would help pay for all the immediate stuff there at the intersection, because we don't want to do a new traffic safety improvement program, have people crossing the street and still be in
flooded
water
Yeah.
and
right.
have the intersection flooded. So it makes sense to tie those things together. And with that Selby intersection being a priority on the bike ped program, this would also be a priority on the drainage side.
Right.
And so we recommend funding the design. We do, one of the items that's not included in your spreadsheet is I think that we still have about 350 left in the approved budget, because we originally budgeted for the full design
Okay,
and of the project, and we only contracted for the conceptual level. So we have some money left over in the budget. It's not fully, I think
does it show here?
it should be enough to cover the design of the north end, but it's not enough to cover the south end in the current year budget.
Okay, what about the update, the $350,000?
I don't think you're going to be able to afford it this year,
The
given the
drainage
other
plan
priority.
master update?
Yeah,
So
so,
we
but
need
it is something that
out?
we want to have in one of the,
Why don't we put it in an out year?
Okay,
Got a comment.
yes, Councilmember DeGoya.
and then,
Oh,
go ahead.
he has a
So-
comment.
Two comments. One, I don't think we should do the drainage plan this year. I don't know why it would cost us 350,000 when the bike ped is costing us 250, and I understand we just added another 50,000, but that's because of particular concern around outreach around the bike ped stuff, given all the feedback we've gotten. So whatever, I think that should be moved out to the next year.
think
We'll-
that's what
we'll
he
be
Yeah,
doing
just
no, I
bike
said
ped
that's
this
the
year.
recommendation is
That's,
moving
that's
out.
their recommendation.
If there's a pump station at Selby at ECR, where would that be pumping the water to?
It would be pumping it northward towards Renato Court,
So that's connecting to the,
not connecting. So
why don't we get one shoreline to open up the drain that Redwood City blocked? We've got a drain. What?
It's the county, it's not
Doesn't it-
Redwood
So-
City.
Not connect.
Well, whatever,
so it,
Redeveloped it, they blocked it all.
I know that, but-
Get this straight. Somebody blocked
so
the
we
drain.
have some investigation going on. There is a line that we have that crosses El Camino towards the
At-
county at Selby.
Selby.
We have engaged somebody to clean out the line enough so that we can run a camera through.
Right.
They failed in their last attempt. And so we're still working to try and get that done. Speculation, fully what it is that the pipe goes to nowhere and is walled off.
Walled off by,
The county,
county
or
or
But
whoever.
there,
Redwood City.
but there, it doesn't go anywhere. There's no drains on the other side of El Camino. So speculation is it was a bubbler. That water would come in one side, bubble up on the other, and drain down the street. There was likely flooding issues that made them take out that
Yeah, the
bubbler on the other side, and they walled it off. Again, we're going to finish the investigation to find out exactly what that end condition is. But the concurrence that we would need from the county is to allow that water to come up. We're not going to pump it
north or south.
north, pump it north.
If we're gonna pump it north, it's gotta go somewhere, right?
Yeah, so it would go in the street to Redwood City, which is where it naturally drains anyway. Right, because El Camino Real in that
Might have a
section
problem
drains
with us Setting
northward.
up a pumping station to pump into their streets.
I would think so. Yeah.
So,
Well, what you're asking for right now.
It's not all going the other
Let's
way
just
down
kind
to
of
the
figure
canal?
out what we're asking for to put in a budget right now, okay? We're, for design, yeah,
so you want to design both, okay.
but not so one is 225? And then this other one is
No, but he said that
600,000?
225 is already in the budget, so.
Yeah, so we can, like I said, we can cover one with the existing allocation, but
Okay.
we do want to identify it in the budget that we're.
And
doing
then
And then we
south
would
is
augment as necessary to fund the other
$600,000?
one.
Yeah, okay.
just for the design?
600K.
I think it'll be just under the 600.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, let's see what it looks like. And then are we going to talk about Parker, Euclid, and
I have a
Polhemus?
question.
That would be recommended after the drainage master
I have a
plan.
question.
So
Okay,
we
so
have
we're
a
not
question
going to
from
do
the
that.
vice mayor.
Okay, good. Vice Mayor.
Okay, I have a couple questions. I agree with, we should get this shovel ready, but since this one's not likely to be eligible for grant money, once it's designed, you'll come back to us and then we have to make the decision on whether or not we want to move forward.
Yeah,
with
so
it
I've given
swiftly.
you a budgetary number of what we think it's gonna
Yeah,
cost.
and you'll have a better understanding.
And we'll
of
have
the
a better
number.
understanding. We will have to go through as part of the design process, going to Caltrans to get their approvals and
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
How long do you
Uh,
think that'll take?
Hoping the Selby one will be faster, but I would, if we tie that in with the traffic signal, I figure we can get the design done here, but then it's gonna be getting through that approval process.
Yeah.
And so we'd be in the ground in a couple years, I would guess.
Okay, because I think
As soon as
Um,
possible.
these numbers, in my mind, are very important to know as we're talking pension stuff and big dollars. to
And
big
that's why
dollars are
Robert's plugging
dollars.
in-
So that's what I'm,
He's plugging in some numbers. I think we need to update a couple of them.
Just one, the one you just mentioned, which is the 2 drainage projects,
yeah,
design phase.
right.
Less the 350 that Robert said is in the existing current year budget that we can roll over, the
Mhm.
475 that he'll be adding to that.
Okay,
Okay, so Parker Euclid, as I said, I'd recommend after doing
Okay,
the drainage master plan because that may shift some of those priorities.
okay.
So those are the priority drainage projects as we see them right now.
Okay.
so,
If they're,
sorry, I'm a little slow. Can I just close the loop on my questions for the ECR drainage? When we need the construction money, the fastest you think we would need it is like 3-4 years?
I would say that I wouldn't want it programmed past 27,
Okay.
meaning that we're doing 25, 26.
Mm.
The design will carry into
27.
26, 27. And I'd want the money no later than 27, 28.
Make sure
And if
have-
we're done sooner and we get approval and we can move the money forward, then we ask for that move
Yeah.
at that point.
Okay,
So Robert
2
will
years.
fix that.
Okay. Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Then
So
your
that's
last-
6.5 million, right? It's 6.5 million that
for
you're
the
talking about?
construction
For the
side?
construction,
Yeah,
you
but we're
put
not
that
asking
in?
for that this year.
But are we, if,
That would be.
following what she's saying, if we're doing the design now, we anticipate design is 2 years. So we should be looking at a pretty big number coming.
Yeah, so.
Isn't that where you're going with your
odds are
thought?
You're gonna,
Yeah.
like I say, odds are you're not gonna be able to afford them both or want to do them both at the same time. So you're
Sure.
probably gonna do the north end first and then the south end.
And are those in different years?
They would have. to
We're
be.
gonna, we're gonna try and get them designed and approved, but I don't think that the budget that, the money that you have, that you will have available is gonna be enough to get them done. You're given all the other priorities and things that are
north
gonna
end
come
is
up.
$1.5
between
million.
now and
South
then.
end will
Five?
be pushed off till next year.
No,
year
3
out now.
years, probably 3
No, but
years.
the,
South end is the easiest one.
One
The
will be 27,
design.
28,
No.
one will be 28, 29.
Because it's part of the.
So next we move into the park.
Mhm.
And so I just say, with all, we have a lot of stuff going on in that we've done at the park with the circulation project. We redid the parking lots.
Mhm.
All that's great. We just finished refinishing the Jennings Pavilion and refloored the main house and upstairs and down. We have lighting improvements we want to get done inside the Jennings Pavilion.
Mhm.
And then now we have the bathrooms and the playground. So those are all big ticket things. Before we tackle any more huge ticket items, the recommendation again is going to be update the master plan. Master plan was developed over 10 years ago. And helping us figure out what the priorities for the community at the park are before we do any really major expenses in the park, I think is recommended.
Yeah.
There are
Oh.
always minor things that can be taken care of that don't change things too much.
Mhm.
I have a hand here from Councilmember Whitmer.
Okay,
Yeah,
I was waiting until you finished.
I just felt that we should push off the master plan for another year, not this year. I think we've got enough on our plates. And you've got other projects here that I think are very good that when we get to them, I'm supportive of, but I'm hoping.
Yeah, so I said, we weren't recommending the master plan for this year
No,
either.
okay.
Last time we had a master plan, you know, almost got the windows and the doors of the pavilion broken, with some people leaving very quickly when we took a certain part of it out.
Sounds
So
great.
we don't want to participate in that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't either.
Don't.
You know what I'm talking about.
I don't.
Don't go
I
there.
don't know what you're talking
So,
about.
It's not relevant.
I think I
so,
Comment.
Okay, Councilmember DeGoya has a question, no
So
comment.
I agree that, I think we should do one master plan a year. So I think we should do the park master plan the year after we do the drainage master
Okay.
plan. And I agree with what Robert said. We got lots going on in the park. We've done a lot in the park. We did more in the park this last year than we've
Yeah.
ever done.
Yeah.
And all of these big things we can put off until we see what comes out of that drainage. And the pickleball court, we've got, is a different issue, right?
yeah, so, well, this is a question for you. I think that it was mentioned at the previous council meeting about a potential donation for conversion of the clay court to a hard court. That conversation was, I think, put off intentionally to discussion of the capital program. We did have a few folks here. We had Mr. Iverson that spoke. Mike Jessup was with us for a little bit. I don't know if he joined online or not. And so I'm going to say that there are concerns about potential conversion with regards to tennis use. And it's the council's prerogative to either discuss the potential conversion now or delegate that to the Park and Rec Committee. That's to you, how you.
Councilmember Whitmer.
Yeah, so what we talked about at the foundation meeting, Mr. Jessup was in favor of keeping the clay court. However, we'd like to, if possible, have the $100,000 to convert the handball court, which it appears probably could be done with that amount of money, and that would make 2 pickleball courts. Then we can put more restriction or keep the restrictions on court 1, so that would open it up for more tennis anyway. But that handball court could be converted. I mean, the cement's already there. We just got to take the wall down, perhaps expand it a little bit and put a fence around it with a gate. It doesn't seem to be over, and Jessup was very excited about that, as were the other people in the foundation, not that they count at this point in time. Park and Rec has to decide, but when I spoke to George about it, he said, well, we don't know who the guy is that's donating it, so you'd have to go ask them, would he be interested in that? And I would like to suggest that maybe we support you doing that and then come back, and if we have to, we can change our mind.
We don't have an estimate about what the cost would be to convert the handball court to a.
No, so we don't. I have a few concerns about that area, and the primary one is accessibility. It's not an easy area to get to. We have to have a complete accessible path to that court or courts ADA.
There's a path there now.
Yeah, there's a path to the
It
gate.
goes to the gate.
Okay,
The-
okay. I don't think we
Yeah.
should be discussing the
Okay.
merits of this conversion at this time. So we need to send it back to Park and Rec for consideration, whatever is going to happen. But, we're not going to
I
discuss
mean,
that.
I
right now.
think that's a punt by the council. If we want a donation,
Yeah,
we got to, there was a donation offered, and I can go back and ask her if she's willing to put it off for 3 or 4 months, which it'll take if it goes back to Park and Rec.
Mm.
That wasn't the tenor of her comment to me.
Mm.
She was ready to go, and
yeah.
I don't really understand Michael's position on the clay court. We get the numbers on how much these courts are used every month, and the clay court is used like 10 to 15 times.
Well, what he has said, and he certified what
Ah.
Ronaldo said, was that the youths that
Nobody
are
hears me.
playing at more advanced tennis must have a certain amount of clay court experience. And so he sees that as a growing market, and that's something that just recently happened.
Okay.
Okay.
He sees that as a growing market, that's all.
Rick,
I mean, every comment I've heard at Park and Rec is that the clay court isn't useful because of the irrigation problem and that it's,
No, he said that it has been fixed. They brought in new clay and they have a donor to repair any further work on the clay when and if it's needed. But they
Okay.
say that the clay court is in the best position and the best case it's been ever.
Councilmember Vice Mayor.
I
give up on the donation. It's okay.
I don't like, I don't know what I'm not privy to what has been discussed in all these one-off meetings, so, I don't want to say no to this donation, but we have to be out of this room at 7, and we have a lot of other stuff we need to talk about, and I'm just not sure that this is
No.
what we should be prioritizing over the others.
Right.
Is
I don't feel
This
that
is why,
I'm in a
George, I said,
position.
move Parks and Rec to a different day.
Evaluate it. Okay. So,
That's what I'm saying.
You could
okay.
ask them if they would be willing, that's all.
Oh, I can ask.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if they say no,
And,
then that
you know,
answers the question.
Okay.
Okay.
So park and, we're finished with that then?
So then the last item in the park is, there was conversations about potentially adding solar battery backup to the Jennings Pavilion. And so that's
Big enough.
at the council's prerogative. Just a reminder, it is a rental facility that is not used all the time.
And now, that's all true, and I agree it may not be the best use for solar. However, the Jennings Pavilion also serves as our backup EOC. If there were a train incident here, we're not using this as our EOC. We're going to head to the park. There's a large power
Oh,
outage.
okay.
Here, we may end up at the park.
It's a
It's
safety
also a
issue.
shelter.
But the
And the
battery
solar
backup is really
perfect there
important.
Because it's a western exposure.
So,
Well, that's new information.
The safety issue.
So that's
Yeah.
why we're recommending that as a particular project.
I
Seems-
support it.
I like it.
I'd
But
I'd
we
approve
wouldn't
it.
use the solar.
but it would store in the battery, right?
yeah, so it's storing the battery. One of the things that we
Maybe.
can look at is whether or not we want to connect it with the play school because they actually use electricity every day. And so there may be a way to kind of bridge it,
Is that the
Charging
expense?
or for charging stations or something else.
That's really.
Yeah, that,
Isn't the library going to be moving things to the Jennings Pavilion, like a yoga class? Hopefully that will be expanded because people can't get into the class today. Tai Chi, those type of things that, you know, there are a lot of library programs that people can't get in because the people take the class and then they immediately re-up. I get a lot of complaints about yoga and other types of classes that they can't get in because it's the same people all the time. Those need to be expanded. And as George mentioned earlier, the library is going to start moving things to the park. the
Vice Mayor,
Jennings Pavilion.
your turn.
It's $30,000 to get a design. It's like
Seems-
not a lot of money,
yeah.
so
I
I would say,
agree.
yeah, let's do it.
I was just gonna ask, is this possible to get grants for this? Because it's emergency shelter and there's a lot of money.
We can certainly
That's
search for
gonna
some.
go there.
might
Yeah.
even be some
There might be
PPE,
some,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna add that 30,000 to our list, but
Okay.
not the 150. Okay.
All right,
Where are we?
we're on town center now.
Okay,
And
solar
you get to talk
carports?
about pension. So
Okay.
I'm just going to hit these up real quick.
Yeah, I'd like to see the tally here.
How much did we spend?
So
Yeah.
before, yeah,
Roughly nothing.
there's not a lot left on those town center ones. Those are just carports
Finish
and
'em up.
parking modification.
I don't know.
Parking modification are those 6 spots out here
We need
in the
that.
courtyard.
That would be,
Yeah,
That
parking
15,000?
there anyway.
Absolutely,
that's
yeah.
15 and 60.
Yeah. Oh, 15 and 60?
So that's 75
So-
total.
But do we have to have
But-
the solar car?
solar should
No,
be in
we
the
don't need to.
future.
What-
It's
Solar
a
is
nice to have, but not
something that we've
this.
been talking about at the town center, but
Yeah.
it's a nice to have, not a need.
Yeah,
But
the
we're
par- the
adding
parking
solar
is
right
more
now.
of a need.
That-
We're adding
hasn't PCE put solar up on the town center?
It's on the town center, yes.
Okay.
We're talking carports. It was.
So,
that was part of the master building.
so the thought was, utilizing the parking along the tracks, putting in solar carports with batteries for EV charging. We would have to get consent from Caltrain to do it. It's their underlying property. But we cannot connect it to the building because that would put the building at risk of seeing its, what do you call it, net metering rate. So it would have to be on its own. But that's, as George said, that's a nice to have, not a need to have.
How many spaces do you think we'd get and how,
We can-
the carport?
I mean,
With
the carport, you can probably cover
10?
about 8, 10.
But wait, are you getting
spots.
more spaces or just covering?
No,
them?
this is just covering the existing spots. It
Talked
doesn't
about
add.
that.
This
I'd like to
makes
push it.
sense.
Let's push it
So
to
we
the
can push
next.
that one.
I would push it to the next.
The library can fund, not a hit to the general fund, can fund those extra parking spots by the courtyard.
Right, which is about what, 2 or 4?
We would defer that work until
5 or
after
6?
the children's
Okay.
garden is complete because
That would be
that's going to
good.
be part of the
The staging area. Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay?
wait, are we agreeing that we'll do the parking spaces the library pays for and we're not going to do the solar?
Right, that's exactly what we agreed to.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So now you're at the UAL.
Oh, now you're Vanna White again, huh?
Wait, do we have to,
I want to see the, where we,
In the projects that you've identified that you may want to do, and as Councilmember Hawkins Manuelian noted, there's about $5.5 million of one of those particular projects that you're going to end up programming in the out years. So those total up to $9.6 million that would need to be programmed in these out years as big construction. And about 3 million of that could be possibly, if we get, grant funded. So really you're looking around 6 million
okay,
to plug in the out years. So your current year, that gap is now down to, $3.6 million.
see,
That's-
that says the
for-
gap. Oh, the gap is
The gap,
3.6,
yes.
but it's,
Is
yeah,
that the
I mean,
right
it's
year,
still a
Robert?
big gap.
Yes, that's still a gap.
Okay,
So you got about
it's a good gap
Yeah, about $3.6 million of unallocated funds.
allocated.
Yeah, plus the 800,000. So then in your out years though, you still got a pretty healthy space to cover that 9-point-something million dollars. So if the council wanted to allocate up to the $3 million that the finance committee recommended, you could certainly do that.
I think
Where's
we-
the $9 million showing in the out years?
It's not, you have it in your gap, way out here.
I think you need to print it out and make it available to us to look at. You can't
Yeah.
really see it up there.
I understand that. You would probably need to have another meeting on it.
Yeah.
And then talk about the UAL contribution and all of that. But this year's funding, that's what we need to decide tonight because your
That-
planning commission has to approve that before you see it again.
Are you,
Well, I
are
think
you
we should
okay
do
with
the
that?
$3 million and move the money from the employee benefits fund.
So do
Over.
2.2?
2.2 plus the 800,000.
Good.
No, because I don't want to make that decision today about that
Why?
because I want to see what it looks like going
Okay,
forward.
but why don't
there's
we
plenty
put
of
it in
money.
the Plan to look at.
Not really.
Well, he's just saying there's
There-
3 point some
there's-
million
There's
dollars
sufficient
extra.
funding out there for that.
This year.
And in your out years.
But that's assuming we don't know what, I mean, we got a lot of stuff shovel ready.
Right,
we
that's $9.6 million of potential capital projects.
But you
All of
haven't
it.
plugged that
All of it.
in. You
But-
haven't plugged that in.
You haven't plugged that in. But about 3 million of that is potentially grant funded.
But the X factor in here is we have no idea what our match responsibility will be for ECR Complete Street bike ped stuff.
Yeah,
I
but
can't,
that's-
you have to speak up.
More than the 5 years out.
Thing
The
for
$3 million
ECR.
UAL is we're gonna earn money on that by reducing our obligation.
Okay.
That's why finance is recommending it.
I was in the meeting. I get
I get the concept
Either.
too, but I agree with Elizabeth that it'd be really nice to see it all. It'd be really nice to see the numbers put in, like if we're gonna do the things, the 6 million for just the drainage, where's that gonna hit? I'm hearing you saying when we look down here, this is 11, you
Mhm.
take it out of that, even my math's that good.
Yeah.
But still, it would be better to
Right.
see it. I agree with Elizabeth.
But alls we're taking out, there's $800,000 already.
Right.
Okay?
That's
And so
extra.
we're just talking about 2.2.
That's right.
Well, 2.2 is a lot. And, so, and, you say that, well, we will replenish on an annual basis, but, if you use that money now, you don't replenish that much on an annual basis.
And we also will be doing things and we'll.
That
decide
will
not to
cost
move
a lot
forward,
of money,
we're gonna get a
yes.
Grant for it too,
Right,
so there
that
are
we
some
need to
unknowns
improve our
in there.
town.
I do recognize that, but,
Mhm.
I think that right now is the right time for us to continue another investment into
Why is the-
reducing our $19 million liability.
Vice Mayor.
I'm having a hard time reconciling Robert saying we can't do all the drainage at the same time because we won't have the money, and George saying we'll have the money.
No, but we're
What?
not doing it at the same time. We're just.
That's right. So it gets carried over these multiple fiscal years. Yes,
Right.
the money's there, but it's not all there in this fiscal year.
I
'cause
guess
that
my
gap's
question
only
is,
5.
are we not doing it all at the same time because we don't have the money, which is what Robert indicated, or because we are making a policy choice to slow it down?
Well, I'm going to say it's a combination of both. I don't think you want that much construction on
Yeah.
the same time either.
Okay.
I think we
So
could manage it.
it's managing impacts to the community as well. So my understanding, the priority is the north end. It's easier, it's shorter, it'll get done quicker, and then migrate to the south end.
Well,
That's in-
that
I think
does
that's
make
intelligent.
sense, but there are a lot of other projects, that are going to be multi-year projects, and nothing's going to happen like immediately. But when those projects come to be paid, I want to make sure we have the money to pay them. And if we use all of our money now, we may not have the money to pay for it now
We're
in the
only using
future.
2.2
It reduces our obligations in the future.
because.
That's a big future, though. It's,
Well, what do you mean? It
UL
happens right,
UAL
starts happening right away.
We'll have savings next year immediately.
how much?
You have the experience from what happened last time.
Three
But
$3
over-
million would give you
I
a
know.
$250,000 operating budget savings.
I don't think I received it.
It was in it was in the council notes email. $3 million would give you a
The
200.
council notes,
Yes.
The council notes, yes.
but not in our packet.
No, it's not part of your packet. $3 million, it was part of the finance committee's packet.
But you are the finance committee.
I
so-
understand that.
Yeah. So,
Your $3 million contribution would net you about $250,000 a year in operating savings.
Okay, so
Yeah,
then to
right.
get back to the $2.25 million, that is more than 3 years,
yeah,
which is what we're talking about for our
Right.
drainage. So I guess
Yeah.
Yeah, if you allocated 2.2, you wouldn't net that back in 5 years. No.
yeah, you'd have
in
to
5
allocate
years,
Longer than,
5 years.
so I'm,
The liability is going to keep going up. And so the younger people that are on this council are going to have a bigger and bigger number to have to wrestle with. Because it grows every year. It used to be 12 million. It's now 19 million is what our liabilities are.
It's going to keep growing no matter what. And so the 2.2 or 2.3, it's not going to make a huge dent in
It's
it.
a prudent decision to
I mean,
put 3 million
It
in.
makes a dent. That's why they recommended it.
Go ahead.
Why do
Sorry.
we ask them to do the report if you guys were not going to do it?
So just to recap if we did 3 million ADP, the 5-year savings would be like 1,257,000. So it's about 250,000 per year over the 5 years. That's for 5 years. 1,257,000 we'll save in
In 5
operation
years, 1
expense.
million.
1,257,000.
So
At-
you
at
invest
3
3
million.
million to save 1.5.
No, you're
But-
investing 3 million to save in some operational costs, but your
Correct.
3 million over the life of your pension obligation is gonna
Saves you
save
5.4 million.
0.4 million.
I'm not going to support that.
Yeah, over the full amortization, a 3 million would save you 5.4 million, 5.5.
Say again,
Over the full amortization,
full amortization, which is how many years?
up to 30. Yeah, all the payments,
All the payments like,
yeah, 20,
until I'm
20 years.
20 years?
It would save us 5.4, almost 5.5
On the
million.
town's unfunded pension.
I understand.
obligation.
If you took $3 million and invested it in, a money market over 20 years, you're going to make more than 5 million.
It's,
But-
it's essentially a rate of return of
6.8.
6.8% a year.
Mhm.
And
It's better
the
than
option of
getting in.
allocating less
Way better,
to UAL.
3 times the.
Is there a way to do it over time as opposed to doing one big lump? And I don't, I agree with the premise myself. I just want to see the numbers is all I'm saying. I'd like to see how those big numbers are going to hit, that we're not, because we did put in the numbers of the 6 million and the 3
So
million and the
let's
minus.
model it with the $3 million, including the 800,000 from the benefits fund, and see what the numbers look like.
Yeah,
I think that's
a good idea.
a reasonable request.
And is it any better to do it over time as opposed to immediately? So instead of putting 3 million, put 1 million in each year.
So for the CIP, which is really what this meeting's about, what staff needs to know is, are these allocations okay? And what I'm hearing from the council is these allocations are fine. What we've talked about this evening are fine. So we can move that forward to the CIP.
Yes,
We can now come back
yes,
at a future meeting,
yes.
plug in the $2.2 million here, because that's a general fund hit. And then plug in the out year projects so you can see the 5 years at a future meeting and have the conversation around how much you really want to allocate. of
Yeah.
that
No, I
2.2
think we
if
should
any.
plug in the 2.2 million now and
Will
see
be,
it.
well,
And if we want to change it, we're going to be able to change anything up there.
so the 2 point,
Nothing's locked in stone.
Yeah.
We're not approving the budget until
Okay.
June.
so our
Your-
delta
your
goes to
planning commission
really like
needs to
under 1 million.
Affirm
in the
your
delta.
CIP budget for general plan consistency at
Bigger
their
than the
May
other
commission
line.
meeting,
Yeah.
so you can approve it in June.
2 point
So we need to
million
know
on that?
this,
And then-
not the 2.2. We just need to know these things are solved.
Well, the two,
So right now it's 5,950,000 is the CIP right now that we discussed.
Okay,
Plug in the
And
2.2.
then-
And then now with the 2.2,
fine.
it's 8,150,000.
Now,
Now
So
you're
hard to
still
see.
above your gap. So now it's 2.5 over 1.1. You're still fine. And in the out year, you've got 7.6.
that's still fine.
This doesn't include the 250K a year that you'll be
right,
generating.
right. So it doesn't include a number of things.
It doesn't, well, 5 years is another million, so that would accumulate another million out here.
Yeah, so
Complete. I don't support it.
We're about to do a whole master plan refresh of our bike ped master plan that has a lot of streets that aren't eligible for grant funding that would probably, we wouldn't be able to move forward swiftly on any of those unless we replenish our funds.
Vice Mayor, I think that we have a member of the public who wants to speak. Bob, stand up, please, so we can hear you.
does he have to stand up?
Well, because I can't see him.
Yes, teacher.
Seriously, I can't see him because he's behind that.
It's really an issue of whether you're going to let that money sit around, which right now it's maybe making 3.9%. So it's not as sweet a deal as when we use the 2% money. But there's a very good chance that that rate could go down further. In fact, a few months ago, I would have almost guaranteed it's going to go down. I can't say that anymore. But to let money sit around unused when we can effectively get a 6.8% return on an obligation that's going to
Just
go up
in-
again yet this year because they're not going to make their 6.8% return. So our obligation is probably at the end of this fiscal year going to be in the $22 million. It's not going to go away. So Elizabeth's kind of indicating we can't do anything about it, so let's just put our head in the sand. I just don't think that's prudent fiscal management.
So I have a question. Are there any other cities in San Mateo County who are paying down their pension liabilities? Do you know who they are? like put aside? Okay. And who are they? You know who they are? And how much are they putting down? Yeah, yeah,
Some of them do it in different ways.
Yeah.
Some of them set it aside into a pension fund.
Right.
In their organization and then pay CalPERS all
Yeah.
in one lump sum later. And others are like us doing the,
yeah. Well, that would be interesting to know because I didn't think that there were, because I've talked with some council members and, you know, they go, no, and we don't have any money, extra money. You know, I think we're kind of unique.
Is
Yes.
it unheard of to create a pension fund, like you just said, that we then manage and we get more money out of
$50
it?
million
You
a
don't
year
get
of
the
surplus.
benefit because right now it's like.
And look what they do.
mortgages,
They
okay?
plow
I
into
see.
their
They
infrastructure.
They roll over. Yeah,
Highest level
Yeah.
mortgage out.
got it.
and so that's an argument. And the other argument is you're actually going to be paying twice. If you're contributing into your own little pension society, you're going to, at some future date, pay CalPERS, you're still paying CalPERS. You are obligating to.
I see.
Stacy,
I have another
okay,
question.
we've got 5 minutes.
Fancy math time. If we sit on that money, it's earning interest, 3.8. Maybe.
3.8.
Maybe it's gonna get versus 6.8. So it's not 200,000 a year
Yeah,
difference. It's less than that per year difference if you subtract the interest, compare the interest versus the savings.
It's a smart thing to start paying it down and get rid of the high interest ones.
I just
Piece
think
In
we're
that
gonna have this
page
argument
level.
every year when we're
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about, do we have money for CIP? Do we do our pension and will happen over
I
and
just want to
over
make
and
sure we
over?
have enough money to pay for these
Construction.
improvements that
We've
we
never had a
need to
problem.
do.
Since we've been on the council, we haven't had a
Right,
problem.
right. So I experienced before when we didn't have enough money.
But we,
Now we're making smart decisions. Like we started when we paid off the OPED and now that's paying dividends to us.
Yeah.
All right?
You going to convince me?
We've done our best.
there's always been money that shows up. The uncommitted general fund money, look at what we thought when we did the town center.
Right.
We got really worried.
Yeah,
It wasn't a problem.
yeah, because we got cheap money to bail us
Well,
out.
not just that, it's that because we had all kinds of stuff in CIP that came back,
Kept
just like
pushing
we have
money
right now.
forward to the building.
Plus
Could pay it down.
conservative budgeting means
And
that
we've been very
actuals always
conservative.
turn out to be better than projected.
So,
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think
But
we have a
Yeah,
Do we
problem.
want to
Robert-
make it a unanimous decision? I don't think
We just need 3 votes. You already got 2.
I can be the deciding one.
I'll get Ann to vote.
I'll change my mind. But you have one more thing to tell me?
We added 9 million in here.
Oh, did you? Good.
Some of this is going to be grant
Yeah.
funded. We don't know exactly how much. So in your out year with 2.2 over here,
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
you're upside down. 3.7 over,
Oh, look at that.
where you at, Robert? Can you
Yeah.
go up a little bit?
We're-
over
That's
1.3.
exactly what I don't
Yeah.
want to see.
Right, but
We're
that's
under-
with the 2.2, and that's not knowing how
But grant
much
money.
of a couple of these projects we're going to get grant
We're
funding
gonna
for.
get grant money
And not
Also-
added new
and revenue's gonna go up.
But we're under water, how much?
By 1.4, no,
One?
2.4 million,
2 point,
Robert will find that by not doing.
I can't see.
2.4 million.
2.4 million?
high
Well, that's
and-
the amount that you're asking to spend.
No, but it's also the amount that the Selby Lane Light would cost, and CCAG had
5 years out.
previously approved funding it. So we're gonna go back and try to get them to actually fund it. They approved
Well,
it.
that's an important thing to do. I'd rather do that than pay down our pension liabilities.
Well,
Well,
we're gonna do
then
that
you're just
and
sitting
pay
on,
down-
you're just leaving money in an account that's not doing anything
But
for
we-
anybody.
Okay.
well,
We should
the,
earn
this is
6.8.
what I wanted to see, and they just added it, and then now I think we have to think about that.
But
What year is
we've
that?
sat here.
5
and
years
we've
out.
Watched every year when we put the budget together. Robert looks at the
That's
cost.
1, 2, 3, that's 4 years out.
Revenues are
Yeah,
estimated.
and if we can
low.
continue looking in the out years, you know, it's
$1 million
gonna get
more.
worse. The delta will get worse.
That's right.
We've never had that
Ever?
problem. They always have hidden money. Always.
That's 20,
And they're
5,
still doing
26,
it.
26, 27, 27,
Better be
28,
safe
28,
than
29,
sorry.
29.
I don't
That's
think it's a
good
problem.
management from, on theirs. I gotta go.
So what was the decision?
We're gonna have to make this
Oh,
decision later.
wait,
Every year the
Okay.
revenue gets readjusted mid-year or later up, right? And
Yeah,
that's
we're-
where you
we're
get the
always
money.
a couple
Well, but
million
hold
dollars
hold
off.
on. I have something to say.
Okay.
Because the revenue gets adjusted, yes, but I have not yet seen an RFP be less than, a response to your RFP be budget. It's always over what we are budget for with our request for proposals. So
Do you see that?
I did, it's not your
Jamie.
fault, but I'm noticing a trend here, Mr. Ovadia.
All right,
Let's bring it back.
we're gonna bring that, topic back,
Pension top.
the pension topic back, and, we're gonna adjourn this meeting. Thank you all.
Bike lanes?
Good night, everyone.